Divine and Mysterious Immortality. I start my cultivation by adding points as a butcher. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 751, Breaking Through Illusions. Sure enough, even the Dan Wang Pavilion has been infiltrated. It seems that the blood spirit sect is really omnipresent. Wei Hong's face was normal, without showing any abnormality. At the same time, deep in his heart, waves were set off. He originally just wanted to try the effect of the spiritual light treasure mirror casually, but who knew that he could actually see the traces of several evil cultivators of the blood spirit sect. As a result, Wei Hong was naturally surprised and happy. What made him happy was that the power of the spiritual light treasure mirror was really good, especially after it was maxed out to the limit. It only took a trace of spiritual power to easily see through the disguise of the evil cultivators of the blood spirit sect. If it was used with all its strength, wouldn't it really be able to see through all illusions? What was surprising was that there were actually several evil cultivators of the blood spirit sect in his lecture hall, which made Wei Hong's mind suddenly a little uneasy, as if the Dan Wang Pavilion had slowly become a place of right and wrong. But he had just entered Dan Wang Pavilion not long ago, and he was quite satisfied with the life here. The most important thing was that he didn't have to stay outside the city. So even though he found that Dan Wang Pavilion had been slowly infiltrated by the evil cultivators of the blood spirit sect, Wei Hong still had no intention of leaving Dan Wang Pavilion. After seeing the identities of those evil cultivators, Wei Hong took advantage of the time of lecturing and pretended to glance twice casually, memorizing the appearance of those alchemy apprentices with blood on their bodies. Then he finished the course without any abnormality, and then announced the end of the lecture with a calm face. After the lecture, he didn't care about those alchemy apprentices, and slowly left the lecture hall on his own, and then walked towards the direction of the Earth Fire Hall. As he walked slowly, Wei Hong thought secretly in his heart, I didn't expect that the blood spirit sect is so powerful that even the Dan Wang Pavilion has been infiltrated. And it seems that many alchemists and alchemy apprentices may have been infected. This is quite bad. The more he thought about it, the more uneasy he became. After all, he had only been in Dan Wang Pavilion for more than 3 years. He had already begun to adapt to the life here and was quite satisfied. He didn't want to leave again because of the blood spirit sect. It seems that I made the right choice to choose the magical power of Linguang Baojian. At least I can see through the disguise of the evil cultivators of the blood spirit sect. At least I won't be deceived. This also allows me to clearly know who has been controlled by the blood spirit sect. Although Wei Hong was a little uneasy at this time, he was relieved when he thought of the power of this new magical power of Linguang Baojian. Then he continued to think, no, I have to look at the alchemists and alchemy apprentices around me during this period. I have to know who has been corrupted and controlled by the blood spirit sect, so as not to be deceived. With this in mind, he quickly came to the Earth Fire Hall. The Earth Fire Hall is always busy. The alchemists who come in and out here are all in a hurry, and their attention seems to be quite focused. They rarely pay attention to the things around them. As long as they find a suitable alchemy room, they will dive in and concentrate on making pills. Wei Hong used to be similar, but today he had other ideas in his mind. So not only did he slow down his pace, but he also looked around quietly. He did not rush into the alchemy room, but inadvertently stepped aside. There happened to be a wooden table and a tea table next to him, which were originally used for alchemists to rest. He simply sat down behind the wooden table. He waved to a servant to bring him a cup of spiritual tea, and then he sat behind the wooden table to rest leisurely. However, Wei Hong's eyes would glance around from time to time, checking all the alchemists coming in and out. Spiritual power had already quietly injected into his eyes, and the spiritual light treasure mirror was always open. The next moment, a dazzling red light appeared from a middle-aged alchemist. Hey, Deacon Joe. Wei Hong's eyes condensed, and he immediately recognized the identity of the man. The man with blood on his body was named Zhou Hao, a second-level lower-grade alchemist. He had interacted with him several times on weekdays and was considered an acquaintance. However, he did not expect that Zhou Hao had also been controlled by the blood spirit sect. Even the deacons of the foundation building period are not spared? How many such lurking pawns are there? Wei Hong was shocked and became more and more uneasy. However, he barely suppressed his inner surprise and uneasiness and sat there to continue observing. After more than an hour, Wei Hong's shock became more and more intense. It was because he had observed for such a long time that he saw at least 10 deacons or alchemists of the foundation building period with blood on their bodies, and the blood on their bodies was even more intense and scarlet than the blood on the alchemy apprentices, which made Wei Hong feel heavy in his heart. The most important thing was that there were several people among them who were quite familiar with him on weekdays, and they were also neighbors. The blood on their bodies was extremely obvious under the detection of the Lingguang treasure mirror, and there was no way to hide it. Thinking of this, Wei Hong's heart suddenly sank, and he thought worriedly, in just over an hour, I have observed that there are no less than 10 blood spirit sect pawns, and Zhou Hao and other familiar people have been controlled by the blood spirit sect. It seems that the Dan Wang Pavilion has been infiltrated deeply, and even the entire Kangshan Immortal City may have been fully infiltrated. This is going to be a big deal. He didn't expect that he had just obtained the Lingguang treasure mirror and he could get such an amazing harvest. This made Wei Hong very satisfied with the magical power of the Lingguang treasure mirror, but he was also full of worries about the current situation and environment. If only the Dan Wang Pavilion was infiltrated, it would be fine, but now looking at the situation, it is clear that even the entire Kangshan Immortal City has been deeply infiltrated. Those evil cultivators of the blood spirit sect and the pawns they have deployed may have already spread throughout the entire Kangshan Immortal City. Therefore, even if he wants to change his job now, or change his identity, it will be useless and will not change the current situation at all. But if he is asked to leave Kangshan Immortal City, it is something he absolutely cannot accept. Because as far as he knew, the area outside the city had already become a vortex of minced meat in the past few years. Once trapped in it, it would be a sure death. The blood spirit sect didn't know how many people were deployed outside the city. If he left Kangshan Immortal City, he would be targeted immediately. Alice, leaving the Immortal City is not advisable, and even the Dan Wang Pavilion cannot be left, lest there be any accidents. Wei Hong was very clear-headed and would never make the unwise move of leaving Dan Wang Pavilion. Although he now saw the identities of many of the blood spirit sect's pawns, he was the only one who knew about this. As long as he didn't make a fuss and everything continued as usual, there would be no danger for the time being. Once he acted rashly, it would bring unnecessary danger and trouble. In that case, then you should retreat and refine the elixir well, and don't care about anything else. Chapter 752 Invitation to Assassinate. After making the decision, Wei Hong couldn't help but secretly breathe a sigh of relief. Although he was still a little worried at this time, not knowing what the situation would become, this was not something he could change alone. All he could do was to find a way to protect himself. No matter what, except for refining the elixir, it's best not to even step out of the door of the courtyard. Wei Hong made up his mind and immediately got up and returned to his own courtyard. After returning, he immediately summoned the servants who were responsible for his daily life and various chores, and told them that they didn't have to come to the courtyard without his call during this period. If there was anything, he would notify them again. He did this because he was worried that his residence would be infiltrated by the pawns controlled by the blood spirit sect, so he simply sent them all away. He also took a look with the spirit light treasure mirror just now, and did not find any abnormalities in those servants. This also made Wei Hong temporarily relieved, and waved his hand to let the servants retreat. And he came to the practice room, and slowly calmed his mind with the help of meditation. However, he had thought that he could live a stable life for a while, but the peace was broken on the second day. This was totally unexpected. Haha, Wang Dao, are you free to come to my place today? Come on, come in. Wei Hong welcomed a thin and pale middle-aged man into the yard with a smile on his face. This man appeared outside his yard early this morning and sent him a communication talisman. Wei Hong sensed the fluctuation of the communication talisman outside the formation, and then he discovered the arrival of this man. This middle-aged man is also a steward of the Dan Wang Pavilion, and he is also a second-level middle-grade alchemist. This man is called Wang Xianheng, and his real cultivation level is the 4th level of foundation building, which is slightly lower than Wei Hong. He and Wei Hong have a lot of contacts, and occasionally get together with several other alchemists to exchange alchemy experience. But Wang Xianheng rarely comes to Wei Hong's residence, so Wei Hong also showed a little surprise at his arrival. After Wang Xianheng sat down at the stone table in the yard, he smiled and said, "Haha, fellow Taoist Wei, I would not come to you for no reason today. If it is rude, please forgive me." Wang Shi and Heng seemed quite polite, and also made it clear that he came to see Wei Hong for something. Wei Hong smiled and said, "Hey, fellow Taoist Wang, you are being a little polite. What's the point of being rude between us? If you have something to say, please speak directly." Although he said so, he was secretly awakened in his heart. When Wang Shi and Heng heard what Wei Hong said, he laughed and said, "Haha, if that's the case, then I'll just say it straight. Dao Wei, it's like this. I came to your house this time to ask you to go out and look for medicine with me. What do you think?" When Wei Hong heard the intention, he was immediately shocked and became alert. He quietly injected a trace of spiritual power into his eyes and asked with a puzzled look, "Oh? Going out to look for medicine? What does Dao Wang mean? Don't we have all kinds of spiritual materials in Danwang Pavilion? Why do we need to go out to look for them?" As he spoke, he saw a layer of bloodlight vaguely revealed in Wang Shi and Heng's body. Seeing this scene, Wei Hong's face did not show any abnormality, but deep in his heart, he secretly said, as expected, and his vigilance in his heart immediately reached the highest state. In fact, he had expected it when Wang Shi and Heng suddenly came to visit, but he didn't expect that the fact was really like this. Wang Shi and Heng was indeed one of the chess pieces buried by the Blood Spirit sect. Such a fact really shocked and angered him. What shocked Wei Hong was that Wang Shi and Heng, whose status in Danwang Pavilion was not low, was still secretly controlled by the people of Blood Spirit sect. Therefore, Wei Hong was quite afraid of the methods of Blood Spirit sect, fearing that he would be tricked by them. Moreover, it was hard not to be suspicious when Wang Shi and Heng came to the door at this time and said he wanted to go out. What made Wei Hong angry was that this person had such bad intentions that he had set his sights on him, clearly trying to lure him out of the Immortal City and then secretly harm him. However, Wei Hong suppressed his anger and his face still showed no abnormality. Wang Shi and Heng seemed to have anticipated Wei Hong's question, so he immediately explained, "Haha, fellow Taoist, you don't know that Wang has found a secret treasure land. I discovered it by accident, and there are many rare spiritual flowers and herbs in it, and many of them are hundreds of years old, and the grade is all above the second grade upper grade. I came to invite you this time because we have a good relationship, and this kind of benefit cannot be given to outsiders." Ah! Wei Hong seemed to be shocked when he heard it, and asked hurriedly, "Hey, fellow Taoist Wang, you are willing to take Wei into such a treasure land? Why don't you pick it by yourself? How can I share such a benefit with you?" At this moment, he became more alert. Wang Shi and Heng, on the other hand, acted as if he didn't care at all. He just waved his hand and said, "Hey, do we need to be so polite to each other? Besides, I have actually already picked the spiritual herbs in that treasure land once. This time, I am specially waiting for some other spiritual herbs that are not old enough to mature before going there. I hope you don't mind, fellow Taoist." How could that be? Wei Hong showed gratitude on his face, and then said, "Fellow Taoist, you think of me for such a benefit. I am really grateful. It's just that I am planning to go into seclusion for a while recently, so I can't agree to your request." He refused very tactfully and didn't want to offend this person openly. Wang Shi and Heng was naturally unwilling to give up after hearing this. He hurriedly advised, "Dao Wei, we can come back and retreat again. Why do we need to rush now? Those spiritual herbs are waiting for us to pick them. If we miss them, it will be difficult to find them in the future. By the way, we can split the spiritual herbs we pick 50-50. Wang will definitely not take more. Dao, don't worry." Wang Shi and Heng seemed to be afraid that Wei Hong would not go, and he said all kinds of benefits to tempt him to go out to pick herbs. Wei Hong was naturally not stupid. He had already noticed that something was wrong, and after seeing the blood on Wang Shi and Heng's body, it was impossible for him to believe a word from him. "Alice, I'm really sorry, Dao Wang, I also want to go with you, but this retreat is very important to me, so I can only reluctantly refuse. I hope Dao will not blame me." Wei Hong acted in a difficult manner, and finally gritted his teeth to refuse. He didn't know what Wang Shi and Heng's intentions were for him, but as long as he rejected him, he could avoid his malice and traps and avoid being in danger. This was the wisest choice. Wang Shi and Heng seemed unwilling to give in, and tried to persuade Wei Hong with various benefits. Seeing that Wei Hong was determined to refuse, he reluctantly said goodbye. Chapter 753, Evil Cultivator, Secret Plot. Fellow Taoist Wang, please forgive me. I am really busy during this period. Let's go out and look for medicine together next time when we have a chance. When sending Wang Xianheng to the door, Wei Hong smiled and explained to him. Wang Xianheng forced a smile, then bowed to Wei Hong and said, "Okay, then I will take my leave first. I'm sorry I can't see you off. Goodbye, fellow Taoist." Wei Hong also bowed. Wang Xianheng turned and left without any hesitation. After Wang Xianheng left, Wei Hong turned back to the yard. He sat down at the stone table and muttered to himself, "We are not related, we have no merit or effort, and we are going out to look for medicine in such a turbulent and sensitive period. How can there be no trick? Who can believe that there is no problem?" Even if he did not see the bloodlight revealed on Wang Xianheng through the Lingguang treasure mirror, facing Wang Xianheng's strange behavior, anyone who is not stupid can see that something is wrong, not to mention that the bloodlight directly exposed Wang Xianheng's identity. In this case, how could Wei Hong agree to go out with him to look for medicine? It can be seen that Wang Xianheng was a little disappointed when he left. It was obvious that he was a little unwilling to seduce Wei Hong, but Wei Hong's determination made him helpless and he could only leave with reluctance. Wei Hong thought more and more in his heart, is the blood spirit sect going to start to arrange chess pieces on a large scale? Even us alchemists have been targeted. It seems that their next move is not small. Wang Xianheng wants to lure me out of the fairy city. There are only two purposes. One is to assassinate me, and the other is to control me by means so that I can work for the blood spirit sect. Now that I have rejected his invitation, I don't know who he will target next. Wei Hong became more and more uneasy, and he was also very curious about Wang Xianheng's next move. So he waited for more than 2 hours, and then quietly left his courtyard. After another hour, he returned to the courtyard again. At this time, Wei Hong's face was gloomy, his brows were furrowed, and he seemed to be thinking about something difficult to decide. His face became more and more serious. Sure enough, Wang Xianheng definitely has bad intentions. He even contacted some other alchemists. I'm afraid he has said his words countless times, but there are still people who believe him. It's really unbelievable. Wei Hong sighed helplessly, but he couldn't change anything. Because just in the hour just now, he visited several familiar alchemists one after another, and the news he got was very consistent. That is, after Wang Xianheng left him, he contacted as many as 7 or 8 alchemists, and they were all those who usually gathered together to exchange alchemy experience. The most important thing is that Wei Hong learned from them that Wang Xianheng's words to those alchemists were exactly the same as what he said to Wei Hong, without any changes. Faced with Wang Xianheng's strange behavior and obviously wrong invitation, some smart alchemists naturally refuse directly like Wei Hong. But there are always those who are blinded by profit. They are not fools, but their eyes are confused by the benefits drawn by Wang Xianheng, or they fall into Wang Xianheng's trap. So 3 alchemists are successfully seduced by Wang Xianheng and go out with him to look for medicine. After learning this news, Wei Hong stopped asking and went straight back to his own courtyard. He already had a very bad premonition in his heart. Forget it, since those people are so blinded by profit, they deserve to be in trouble. Others can't save them even if they want to. I'd better take care of myself. Wei Hong shook his head, knowing that it was useless to think more now. So he pretended to know nothing, doing what he should do every day, without showing any abnormality, but just becoming a little reclusive. 3 days later, Wei Hong has been paying attention to the news of Wang Xianheng and others. Today, he finally learned from an alchemist that Wang Xianheng and others have returned safely. Back? And all of them returned safely. Wei Hong was secretly surprised, and seemed to be a little surprised by this result. But according to his speculation, if these people returned safely, it would be very likely that the second possibility he had thought of before, that is, those people might have been secretly controlled by someone. Thinking of this, Wei Hong immediately began to quietly observe the whereabouts and movements of those people. The next day, he met the 3 alchemists who went out with Wang Xianheng to find medicine. Just one look, Wei Hong was shocked. Sure enough, these 3 people were actually tricked. The scene presented in his eyes shocked Wei Hong. It was because there was bloodlight lingering in the bodies of those 3 people, but there was no bloodlight before they went out a few days ago. In this way, it is self-evident when this layer of bloodlight appeared. Obviously, it should be a trick that these 3 people were tricked when they left the fairy city. They either did not notice it, or they had become pawns of the blood spirit sect. After figuring this out, Wei Hong did not show any abnormality, but said hello as usual and turned away, behaving very normally. After returning to his own courtyard, his face suddenly became solemn. Those three people have indeed been tricked. How did the Blood Spirit sect do it? They were able to trick three alchemists in the foundation building stage without any resistance, and there was nothing unusual afterwards. This is definitely not a simple matter. Wei Hong's face was solemn and he began to think carefully. He observed that the three people did not have any abnormalities after being tricked, and there was no difference from before. They were making alchemy as they should, and giving lectures as they should. There was nothing wrong at all. Wei Hong recalled some deeds and rumors about the Blood Spirit sect, and he guessed in his heart that this was probably the Blood Spirit sect using special means to absorb talents. This special means was extremely powerful, but difficult to detect. Anyone who was tricked seemed to have no changes, but it was very likely that they had been attacked by strange evil arts, and they might gradually become twisted in character and cruel in mentality, and then slowly be completely controlled by the Blood Spirit sect. Such a process should be the ability of the Blood Spirit sect to arrange chess pieces. Wei Hong gasped in shock, and then thought to himself, this Blood Spirit sect is not only omnipresent, but also extremely strange. If you don't pay attention, you may not even know when you are attacked. It is really dangerous. When he thought of this, he secretly thanked himself for not accepting Wang Shai and Heng's invitation, otherwise, he might become one of the pawns of the Blood Spirit sect. It seems that no one can be trusted now. Even with a spirit-like treasure mirror, it may not be able to see through the disguises of those evil cultivators. I must not leave Danyuan Pavilion in a short time. Chapter 754 Intelligence, Crisis. In the training room. Ever since that day when he saw three alchemists surrounded by a layer of blood light because they went out with Wang Shai and Heng, Wei Hong's heart has become more and more uneasy. Has this Danyuan Pavilion become the center of the vortex? Or has the entire Kangshan Immortal City been completely infiltrated by the Blood Spirit sect? Wei Hong frowned, thinking in his heart, the Blood Spirit sect is so big, but Kangshan Immortal has not noticed it at all. And the City Lord, that is Kangshan Immortal's eldest disciple, who is in charge of all the affairs of Kangshan Immortal City on weekdays. Can't he notice the little moves of the Blood Spirit sect? Or have they noticed it, but are fishing? Wei Hong couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart when he thought of fishing. If this is true, then the current situation seems to make some sense. With Kangshan Immortal's strength and cultivation, it is impossible for him not to notice the actions of the Blood Spirit sect, but now Kangshan Immortal City seems to have no reaction, allowing the Blood Spirit sect to continue to infiltrate, which is definitely not normal. But if it was Kangshan Immortal who wanted to fish in order to catch the big fish of the Blood Spirit sect, this would be much more normal, and it would explain why the situation has become what it is now. However, these are just Wei Hong's guesses. He cannot speculate on decisions related to the level of Yuanying Immortal. Perhaps, the truth behind it may be even more bizarre than he thought. No matter whether the convenience of Kangshan Immortal City is fishing or not, I can't joke with my life. Wei Hong's thoughts turned rapidly in his mind, and he began to think about how to deal with it. Looking at the current situation, even if there is no chaos in a few years, it is full of dangers. I absolutely cannot leave Kangshan Immortal City, even if I try not to leave the Danyuan Pavilion, and I must find a way to arrange a few retreats. He was deeply afraid that Kangshan Immortal City would soon be in chaos. If he arranged some retreats in advance, at least he could ensure his own safety and allow himself to escape from the center of this dangerous vortex in time. So, he began to think carefully about what retreats and countermeasures to prepare. First of all, there are talismans. Although I can draw a lot of talismans now, the types are not complete enough. Once I encounter a special situation, they may not be useful. I still need to buy a few more talismans. The second is the formation. I need to study the formation more. It is best to study some methods to break the formation. This is very necessary. Then there are paper figures. I need to refine a large number of paper figures. The more the better. At the critical moment, paper figures can not only set up the formation, but also confuse the enemy, or block fatal attacks for myself. This cannot be left behind. Finally, there is information. Now I know nothing about the Blood Spirit sect. I think it is necessary to get some information about the Blood Spirit sect first. Only by figuring out the information can I make better arrangements and plans. Various ideas and arrangements soon became clear in his mind. After Wei Hong thought carefully for a while, he slowly entered the state of meditation. The next day, Wei Hong quietly left the Dangwon Pavilion, then changed his appearance and came to the Xianji Pavilion. The reason why he left Dangwon Pavilion at this time was to go to Xianji Pavilion to buy intelligence about the Blood Spirit sect. Finding out the intelligence about the Blood Spirit sect was one of his important arrangements. This matter was extremely important and needed to be kept secret. It was impossible to ask others for help, so he could only take the risk to come out. Fortunately, this place was still in the city, so he didn't worry too much. "Fellow Taoist, what intelligence do you want to buy?" In front of Wei Hong, a middle-aged manager of Xianji Pavilion asked with a smile. Wei Hong didn't hesitate at all and answered directly, "I want all the intelligence about the Blood Spirit sect, the more detailed the better." "Oh." The middle-aged manager looked at Wei Hong in surprise, and there seemed to be a complicated and inexplicable light in his eyes, and then said, "This is simple. Our Xianji Pavilion has been collecting and updating the intelligence about the Blood Spirit sect, but the price is not low. The most detailed version is worth 500 medium-grade spirit stones. Do you still need it?" 500 medium-grade spirit stones? Wei Hong frowned. This was the price of a second-grade high-quality spiritual weapon. He had not expected that the intelligence information of an evil sect would be so valuable. But when he thought about the current situation, Wei Hong gritted his teeth and said, 500 is 500. I want it. After that, he took out 500 medium-quality spiritual stones from his storage bag and put them on the table. The middle-aged steward saw that he was so straightforward and immediately smiled and said, "Haha, good, fellow Taoist is really straightforward. Please wait for a moment." After a while, the miniature teleportation array next to the middle-aged steward glowed with white light. When the light faded, a jade slip appeared in the array. The middle-aged steward reached out and picked up the jade slip, then handed it directly to Wei Hong, and said, "Fellow Taoist, please check the goods." "Okay." Wei Hong was not polite either. He took the jade slip and began to check it. After just a few breaths of reading, he put down the jade slip with a serious face, then looked up and said to the middle-aged steward, "The things are correct. In this case, I will take my leave first." "Haha, fellow Taoist, take care. I'm sorry I can't see you off." The middle-aged steward didn't show any displeasure, just stood up and bowed to say goodbye. Wei Hong nodded, turned around and left the Xianji Pavilion directly. After that, he went to several bookstores that specialized in selling various ancient books or various materials. All the ancient books and materials related to the Blood Spirit sect were bought by him, and then he quietly returned to the Dangwon Pavilion with these things. After returning to his own practice room, he placed a jade slip, several ancient books and some materials in front of him. "Everything is here, it must be complete enough, especially the information bought from the Xianji Pavilion, which should be able to explore the bottom of the Blood Spirit sect." Wei Hong muttered to himself. After he finished speaking, he put the jade slip aside and picked up an ancient book to read quickly. After he finished reading one book, he immediately switched to another one until he finished reading all the ancient books and the pile of information. However, after reading those ancient books and information, Wei Hong frowned, as if he was a little confused, as if he didn't think the information he saw was very detailed. So he placed all his hopes on the last jade slip bought from the Xianji Pavilion and solemnly pasted it on his forehead. His spiritual consciousness extended into it and began to carefully read the information in the jade slip. This time, Wei Hong's face changed many times. From surprise to shock, and then to horror and disbelief. The more he read, the more frightened he became, and his face became more solemn and uneasy. After more than half an hour, Wei Hong slowly put down the jade slip and opened his eyes. This Blood Spirit sect is so terrifying. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 755, A Cunning Rabbit Has Three Burrows. Wei Hong's face was gloomy. He didn't expect that the Blood Spirit sect, an evil sect hidden under the water, would have such terrifying strength now. According to the jade slip given by the Xianji Pavilion, although the Blood Spirit sect is an evil sect, its strength should not be underestimated, and it is not much weaker than Kangshan Immortal City. According to the information in the jade slip, the Blood Spirit sect actually has a Yuanying stage ancestor. In terms of top combat power, it is not inferior to Kangshan Immortal City, because there is only one Yuanying stage ancestor in the Immortal City, Kangshan's Henrun. In addition, the Blood Spirit sect also has a large number of Jinden masters, from the early stage of Jinden to the perfection of Jinden, and there are quite a lot of them. Such a piece of news alone is enough to make Wei Hong feel extremely horrified, and at the same time, it also shocked him severely. The Blood Spirit sect not only has the nascent soul ancestors, but also a large number of golden core masters. If they go to war with Kangshan Immortal City, it seems that the outcome is still unknown. Wei Hong was worried, and at the same time, he was extremely shocked by the terrifying strength of the Blood Spirit sect. He originally thought that the Blood Spirit sect was just some declining evil sect, so he could only develop secretly, or use strange and unpredictable evil means to slowly control some pawns like now, and then take action after the strength is strengthened. But who knew that the facts were completely different from what he thought, and the overall strength of the Blood Spirit sect was so terrifying. Although the Blood Spirit sect is not as big as Kangshan Immortal City, if it comes to top combat power, the Blood Spirit sect is definitely not inferior to Kangshan Immortal City. Wei Hong didn't know until this moment that he had completely misunderstood before. The Blood Spirit sect is not weak. Why are they doing all these tricks in secret? Kangshan's Henren should also know the true strength of the Blood Spirit sect, right? Could it be that Kangshan Xiancheng is not fishing, but is afraid of the Blood Spirit sect? Various thoughts flashed through Wei Hong's mind, but then immediately fell silent. He knew that it was useless to think about these things now, and he should think about how to deal with this matter. After knowing the terrifying strength of the Blood Spirit sect, Wei Hong's uneasiness and horror were about to overflow from his heart, and he became very urgent, wishing to make all preparations immediately. No, this Blood Spirit sect is so terrifying. Once a war breaks out, I must find a way to ensure that I will not be affected. It seems that I have to prepare more backup plans, and it would be best if I can prepare more means of escape. As the saying goes, a cunning rabbit has 3 burrows, and Wei Hong is now thinking this way. He knows very well that with the terrifying strength of the Blood Spirit sect, once the Blood Spirit sect officially starts a war against Kangshan Xiancheng, the result will definitely be extremely tragic. According to the time recorded in the Jade Slip, the Blood Spirit sect has a very common method, which is to set up a large array. Often, the monks in the large array will be refined into puppets by the Blood Spirit sect, or directly killed. Once the Blood Spirit sect also sets up layers of large arrays on Kangshan Immortal City, most of the monks in this Immortal City will most likely be refined into puppets, a completely miserable end with no escape, which is also a result that Wei Hong absolutely cannot accept. But he suddenly thought that with the Blood Spirit sect's methods and style of doing things, I am afraid that layers of large arrays have already been set up outside Kangshan Immortal City, but they have not been activated. In this way, some of the means he relied on to escape before will have no effect. For example, digging a tunnel. Now in this Kangshan Immortal City, it is definitely unrealistic to want to dig a tunnel to leave. Not to mention how big Kangshan Immortal City is, the Immortal City originally also laid out arrays, and the Blood Spirit sect will definitely guard against this. What should I do? Digging a tunnel won't work, and leaving Kangshan Immortal City is a dead end. Is it possible that I can only stay in Dangwon Pavilion and wait for death? Wei Hong felt more and more helpless, but he still couldn't think of a good way to deal with it, nor could he think of many useful means of escape, which made him very uncomfortable. I don't know what kind of formation the Blood Spirit sect has set up outside the city. It would be great if I knew. Wei Hong's thoughts turned rapidly in his mind. After thinking about it, he murmured, since I can't escape from the Immortal City by any means or methods now, it seems that I can only rely on myself. He sighed with regret, his face full of helplessness. After thinking about it, Wei Hong decided to start with a formation to see if he could use the formation as a breakthrough point. If there's a chance, he will still choose to break a large formation outside and escape. Therefore, he decided to continue to delve into the way of formation, deepen his attainments in the formation as much as possible, and then study more means and techniques of breaking the formation, and it would be best to practice another formation breaking talisman. In this way, if something goes wrong, he can also take advantage of the chaos to find an opportunity to escape from the fairy city. Not only the array breaking talisman, but also all the talismans or spells related to breaking the band should be collected, and then the realm should be improved according to the effect. After all, I don't have many vitality points anymore, so I can't waste them casually. In addition to the array breaking talisman, I should prepare more talismans of various kinds, and I can put the alchemy on hold for the time being. It seems that I have to go out again. I can't save spirit stones anymore. I must spend them as soon as possible and turn them into combat power. Various materials must also be stockpiled in large quantities. After Wei Hong calmed down, various thoughts began to slowly emerge in his mind. Although he was still very uneasy at this time, he had accepted the fact that he could not escape, so he calmed down his heart and began to work on other aspects to make as many preparations as possible. After thinking about the next arrangements carefully in his mind, Wei Hong finally calmed down his uneasy heart. After a few days, he quietly left the Danwang Pavilion again. Fortunately, he was still in the city, and Wang Shai and Heng and other people controlled by the Blood Spirit sect did not seem to have any intention of continuing to pay attention to him, so Wei Hong left the Danwang Pavilion without any accidents, and no one cared about his whereabouts. He changed his identity and appearance again, and then frequently went in and out of various shops. Every time he arrived at a shop, Wei Hong would take out a jade slip with a list of materials he needed. The shop only needed to prepare the materials according to the list. The most common materials on these lists were materials for drawing talismans, followed by materials for setting up formations. Other alchemy materials and auxiliary materials were less, and they were obviously prepared for drawing talismans. At the same time, Wei Hong also spent a lot of money to buy a second-level medium-quality array-breaking talisman. It is said that when this talisman is cultivated to a high level, it can even break all the second-level formations, which is exactly what Wei Hong urgently needs. For this, he spent a large amount of spirit stones, spending most of the spirit stones he had earned before, and then exchanged them for a large amount of materials. But Wei Hong did not feel the slightest bit of heartache, but felt that it was not enough. If possible, he would even buy more materials and talismans. After buying everything, he quickly returned to Danwang Pavilion. Chapter 756 Background, Fog. 3 years passed in a flash. In the training room, Wei Hong was practicing with his eyes closed. After more than half an hour, he slowly closed his practice and opened his eyes. Huh? Wei Hong exhaled lightly, and then secretly sighed. After entering the 5th level of Foundation building, the speed of practice has indeed slowed down again. If it weren't for the support of a large number of elixirs, I'm afraid it would take at least 20 to 30 years to break through to the late stage of Foundation building. His current cultivation level is still the 5th level of Foundation building, but compared with 3 years ago, his cultivation progress has improved a lot. Although he is still a little short of breaking through to the 6th level of Foundation building, he has already seen hope. In the past 3 years, Wei Hong's practice has never fallen behind, and he has been practicing harder and harder, which has also allowed his cultivation to steadily improve. In addition, he had already informed Zuming, Suji and others of his joining the Danwang Pavilion. Their deacons had already made an appointment with him to refine various elixirs. After Wei Hong joined the Danwang Pavilion, this matter became more convenient. Deacons such as Suji only needed to bring materials to the Danwang Pavilion to find him. In this way, Wei Hong made a lot of money by helping others refine elixirs and refining some elixirs in his spare time to sell to the Danwang Pavilion. Under such circumstances, he made a lot of money by relying on his identity as an alchemist. It's just that he made a lot of money by refining elixirs, but the various expenses and expenditures were even more exaggerated. If it weren't for the fact that he earned a lot of spirit stones from refining elixirs, he would have almost emptied his family. It was just because he had to buy a large amount of materials every once in a while during the 3 years to support his drawing and research. During these 3 years, Wei Hong drew a large number of array-breaking talismans, fog talismans and self-destructing talismans in addition to practicing. The Breaking Array Talisman and the Mist Talisman were both purchased at the Treasure Pavilion 3 years ago. After that, they were recorded into his system and upgraded to the Great Perfection Realm. Therefore, he has been constantly drawing the Breaking Array Talisman and the Mist Talisman for the past 3 years. While storing a large number of Breaking Array Talisman and the Mist Talisman, the realm of these 2 talisman techniques has also been upgraded to the perfection level. This is all due to his own efforts and has nothing to do with vitality points. As one of his main means of attack now, he has also drawn a large number of self-destructing talismans. In addition, he infuses his own spiritual power into the self-destructing talismans while practicing, so that the power of those self-destructing talismans has reached the current limit. Wei Hong was holding a self-destructing talisman in his hand at this time. He looked at the self-destructing talisman and said to himself, "Hey, let alone throwing out many of them at the same time. Even if there is only one, it is estimated that even the 6th level of foundation building will lose a layer of skin. If you don't deal with it carefully, you may end up seriously injured. Only he himself knows how terrible the power of this self-destructing talisman is. Especially with the continuous improvement of his cultivation, the power of the self-destructing talisman has naturally increased a lot. In addition, he also drew a lot of Xiangang Posha talisman and Lingayan talisman, in order to be able to deal with various situations, especially if he really needs to face the evil cultivators of the Blood Spirit sect. Maybe the Xiangang Posha talisman can be of great use. As for the Lingayan talisman, when a big chaos occurs, it is suitable for him to use for escape or hiding. This is why Wei Hong has purchased so many materials in the past 3 years, just because he has drawn too many talismans, and now they are stored in his storage bag, and he can take them out at any time to fight the enemy. In addition to the preparations for these talismans, he also directly upgraded the spell, Renmu Substitute Technique, to the extreme realm. After all, now is not the time to save vitality points. This substitute technique definitely has an irreplaceable role at a critical moment, so he seems to attach great importance to it. As expected, after raising the Mu substitute technique to the limit, Wei Hong finally understood the role and effect of this spell. If he was in danger, he only needed to think about it and let a plant or an object take the fatal blow on his behalf. If he was in the mountains and forests, the effect of this spell could be maximized. However, every time he cast the substitute technique, Wei Hong's body would suffer a lot of injuries. This is the price of casting the substitute technique. Generally speaking, ordinary cultivators only need to cast it 3 times in a row. Even if they don't suffer any fatal blows, they may die due to the aggravation of their physical injuries. This is why few people are willing to practice this Mu substitute technique. However, such a price is a small problem that Wei Hong can solve easily. As long as there is a vitality point, he can recover from his injuries instantly after casting the substitute technique, and he can cast this spell continuously without being affected by the number of times. In this way, the great role of this wood substitute technique for Wei Hong can be imagined. It can be called a life-saving magic skill. It is worthwhile for him to spend a lot of vitality points to upgrade it to the limit. After making so many preparations, if I still can't escape after the war breaks out, it can only be considered my bad luck. Wei Hong shook his head and laughed. His mentality was extremely stable. Only he knew how much preparation he had made to save his life in the past 3 years. In addition to drawing talismans, he never slacked off in his research on formations. After these years of research, Wei Hong's attainments in formations have become deeper and deeper. It's just that I haven't found out what formation the Blood Spirit sect has set up outside the Immortal City, otherwise at least I can make more preparations to break the formation based on the large formation outside. With Wei Hong's current attainments in formations, plus a large number of formation-breaking talismans, ordinary formations will definitely not be difficult for him, but what he is afraid of is encountering formations that are too high level, such as formations above level 3. If he really encounters them, he will be helpless. It's useless to think too much. Let's continue to prepare according to the plan. 1 day of peace is a day, and there is no need to think too much about other things. Wei Hong's face was firm, and he was obviously ready to face the war. Since it can't be avoided, he can only accept it. In the past 3 years, the situation near Kangshan Immortal City has become more and more tense. Although Wei Hong did not leave the Immortal City, according to the news he heard, the entire Kangshan Immortal City has become increasingly tense. A large number of cultivators dare not leave the Immortal City at will, fearing that something unexpected will happen. Even inside the Immortal City, people are in panic at this time. A large number of cultivators are hiding in the city and dare not go out. On weekdays, they can only gather together to discuss and chat. This makes the atmosphere in the city slowly become heavy. I don't know what the evil cultivators of the Blood Spirit sect are waiting for, and Kangshan Immortal City. Even a blind man can see that the situation is like this now, but they are still doing nothing. I don't understand. I really don't understand. Now the situation in Kangshan Immortal City seems to be covered with a layer of fog, which makes it difficult for him to understand. But Wei Hong also knew that no matter what the situation was, as long as he could protect himself, the rest was not important to him. Let's wait and see. Chapter 757 Remnants of the Cao Family. At the same time, outside Kangshan Immortal City, there is an inconspicuous mountain hundreds of miles away from the Immortal City. Not many people know that, in fact, under the ground of this mountain, a large underground secret cave has long been dug out. The area of this cave is hundreds of feet wide, with several passages inside. There are also many stone chambers dug out on both sides of the passages, but there are no figures in many of the stone chambers. At this time, in a stone chamber near the depths of the cave, two middle-aged men are surrounding a stone table. The two middle-aged men look quite similar, and at this moment they look extremely sinister, with fierceness and hatred in their eyes from time to time, and they also exude a palpitating chill. At this time, the middle-aged man sitting on the right said with a face full of resentment, "Second brother, this is absolutely correct. I have investigated for several years and collected a lot of information about Wei Hong. I am sure that this person is definitely responsible for the current situation of our CAO family. If there are cultivators familiar with the CAO family here, they will find that the person who is speaking at this time is Xiao Jin, a member of the CAO family who is wanted by Kangshan Xiancheng. As for the identity of the person sitting on the left, who looks a bit like Xiao Jin, it is even more obvious. It is his brother Xiao Ming. These two people did not flee Kangshan Xiancheng, and no one knows why they stayed near the Xiancheng. If Wei Hong knew about this, he would definitely shrink in the Xiancheng and not go out. Moreover, the topic that the two surviving members of the CAO family are discussing at this time is also related to Wei Hong. Upon hearing this, Xiao Ming, who was sitting on the left, slightly raised his sinister and ferocious face, and then asked in a slightly low and hoarse voice, "Is it true? Then Wei Hong is really the one who caused our CAO family to end up like this?" "That's absolutely right, second brother," Xiao Jin said with certainty and resentment. "According to the information I have investigated, after Wei Hong killed Xiao Zhen and the other two, although he seemed to have been hiding in the spiritual plant garden and never left, he kept making small moves. Whether it was the attack on the Guang'an market of the Tang family, the robbery of our mine, or the death of the two cousins Xiao Xian, they were all related to Wei Hong. It is very likely that he had a way to leave the spiritual plant garden that we didn't know about, which is why he was able to do so many things in secret. But although that kid acted cautiously, he still revealed some flaws. For example, the person who attacked the Guang'an market was not Xiao Hang at all. I have verified it afterwards. Xiao Hang stayed in the ancestral home that day, and I asked him in person, so it is very likely that Wei Hong did it, but he just disguised himself as Xiao Hang. Xiao Jin was furious, constantly telling Xiao Ming about his own judgment and the information he had found out. In the past few years, he had not only stayed near Kangshan Immortal City but also kept investigating Wei Hong's affairs. Originally, the destruction of the CAO family was caused by the fact that the ancestor of the CAO family accidentally exposed his practice of evil skills. However, after Xiao Jin and Xiao Ming calmed down, they began to carefully consider the cause and effect, and slowly discovered the existence of Wei Hong. Originally, Xiao Jin and Xiao Ming would not care about a mere cultivator in the initial stage of foundation building, but later Xiao Jin thought of the death of Xiao Zhen and the two, and then the attack on the Guang'an market of the Tang family, and so on. He seemed to see a mysterious driving force behind this series of events. In this way, Wei Hong unexpectedly surfaced. Xiao Jin and Xiao Ming guessed that it was very likely that Wei Hong was behind the scenes, which caused the death battle between the Tang family and the Xiao family. If not, the ancestor of their Xiao family would not have leaked the evil skills. Therefore, Xiao Jin has been investigating Wei Hong for a long time in the past few years. After his investigation, he has basically determined that the destruction of their Xiao family and several previous events are actually related to Wei Hong. A trace of violent murderous aura flashed across Xiao Ming's sinister face, and then he laughed coldly. Okay, a small foundation building cultivator can play with my Xiao family in the palm of his hand, dare to target my Xiao family like this, and really make our Xiao family fall to the end of the family being destroyed and the people dying. It's really amazing. If I don't kill this boy, I, Xiao Ming, swear not to be a human being. Bang! As he spoke, Xiao Ming's right hand slammed hard on the stone table. Xiao Jin also followed suit and cursed angrily. Needless to say, if we don't kill this boy, how can we explain to our dead ancestors and clansmen? Even if I risk my life, I will make sure that Wei Hong dies without a burial place. Xiao Ming and Xiao Jin were both furious, and they looked gritting their teeth and hating Wei Hong immediately. If possible, it would be best to cut him into pieces. Who would have thought that a foundation-building cultivator who had a grudge against the Cao family could actually bring the Cao family to a state of ruin? If it weren't for a long investigation, Xiao Ming and Xiao Jin might not believe this. At this time, Xiao Jin said viciously, "Second brother, this person resigned from the job at the spiritual plant garden a few years ago, and turned around to work as a deacon at the Danwang Pavilion. Now he is doing well in the Danwang Pavilion. It is said that many people come to him to make pills on weekdays. I don't know how comfortable his life is." When talking about this, Xiao Jin was so angry that he wanted to curse. The two of them were wanted by Kangshan Immortal City and became homeless dogs. If they had not taken refuge with the Blood Spirit sect, they would have been in a state of panic or fled from the vicinity of the Immortal City. How could they stay here? However, the two of them and the Cao family ended up like this, while their enemies are now living a carefree life. How could Xiao Jin not be angry? Xiao Ming was so angry that he gnashed his teeth, and then said viciously, "Then lead this man out to me. I will personally cut him into pieces to relieve the hatred in my heart." Since it has been determined that Wei Hong is the culprit who caused their Cao family to be wiped out, the two of them will naturally find a way to avenge this blood feud. Especially when they think of Wei Hong now staying in Danwang Pavilion and living a leisurely life, the two of them feel a kind of bone-eating and heart-piercing pain. If they don't avenge this, they may even go crazy because of the growth of their inner demons. Therefore, solving Wei Hong has become the most important and concerned thing for Xiao Ming and Xiao Jin now. After hearing Xiao Ming's request, Xiao Jin said indignantly, "Damn it, why do you need to tell me, second brother? Do you think I don't want to? I have been trying to lure him out of the city for a long time, but I have not succeeded until now. That guy seems to want to hide in the city all the time. If that's the case, then it will be difficult for us to avenge our blood feud." In the past few years, Xiao Jin has been trying to lure Wei Hong out of the fairy city, including the time when Wang Shai and Heng invited him to go out. In fact, it was Xiao Jin's instruction that he approached Wei Hong. Unfortunately, Wei Hong refused repeatedly. Chapter 758 Mandatory Mission. Then let's change the method. Xiao Ming had no expression on his face, but his tone was full of murderous intent. No matter what, they had to lead Wei Hong out of the city before they could take action. Although Xiao Ming and his partner had joined the Blood Spirit sect, they were still just foundation-building cultivators. It was impossible for them to take the huge risk of sneaking into Kangshan Immortal City. Once discovered, they would not be able to leave the Immortal City alive. Moreover, they were now the only two surviving members of the Cao family. If they were not absolutely sure, they would not take the risk. They had to cherish their lives, which was also to leave a trace of bloodline for the Cao family. Xiao Jin's face twitched when he heard this, and he seemed extremely angry. He said viciously, "That kid has repeatedly refused other people's invitations and has no intention of going out. He is just like a turtle. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't enter the Immortal City, I would have crushed him to ashes long ago." Thinking of Wei Hong's repeated refusal to go out, Xiao Ming and Xiao Jin were so angry that their teeth itched. Then Wei Hong must be worried that he will encounter danger after leaving the city, so he wants to hide in the city. Xiao Ming frowned, rolled his eyes a few times and suddenly said, "Since soft methods don't work, then use hard methods and force him to leave the Immortal City and see if he dares to disobey." "Huh? What do you mean, second brother?" Xiao Jin was a little confused when he heard this. Xiao Ming immediately sneered and explained, "Hasn't the Blood Spirit sect also deployed many pawns in the Danwang Pavilion? Among them are several high-level members of the Danwang Pavilion, right? Wei Hong is the deacon of the Danwang Pavilion. He has tasks to complete every month. Since he is unwilling to go out, we can simply ask the people of the Blood Spirit sect for help and ask them to assign a mandatory task to Wei Hong, requiring him to leave the Immortal City to complete the task. In this way, our chance will appear, right?" As soon as these words came out, Xiao Jin's eyes lit up and he laughed in surprise. "Haha, good, you are worthy of being the second brother. You can think of such a simple method. Haha, this is indeed feasible. I think Wei Hong will never dare to disobey orders, unless he doesn't want to stay in the Danwang Pavilion." Xiao Jin knew very well that the method Xiao Ming said was absolutely feasible. As long as he controlled it according to his method, he could basically lead Wei Hong out of Kangshan Immortal City. As long as Wei Hong left the Immortal City, it would be very simple for them to deal with a cultivator in the middle stage of foundation building. Xiao Ming and Xiao Jin actually didn't think about whether they could not deal with Wei Hong. Such a ridiculous idea was impossible to even appear in their minds. It was just because one of them was a late-stage foundation-building cultivator and the other was a perfect foundation-building cultivator. Not to mention that they both attacked at the same time. Even if only one of them wanted to deal with a cultivator in the middle stage of foundation building, it would definitely be a piece of cake. So they were full of confidence and revenge, and they only needed to lure Wei Hong out of the fairy city to complete it. Xiao Ming then made the decision, okay, let's do it this way. I will personally go to find the people of the Blood Spirit sect and ask them to help arrange it. As for sixth brother, you will be responsible for making preparations and finding a few reliable people. Just in case, we must not be careless. We must completely kill Wei Hong and never leave him any chance. Do you understand? Xiao Jin's face immediately became solemn when he heard this, and he nodded immediately. I understand, second brother is right. Wei Hong was able to kill Xiao Xian and his two cousins. His strength must not be as simple as it seems. It is right for us to be cautious. Seeing that Xiao Jin understood what he meant, Xiao Ming nodded with satisfaction. The two discussed again and then went their separate ways. 3 days later. Danwang Pavilion. On this morning, Wei Hong prepared to go to the alchemy room to make elixirs as usual. But before he could reach the Earth Fire Hall, Guan Yu, the deacon of the Affairs Hall, took the initiative to find him. Dao Wei, I have something to talk to you about. Can I have a word with you? Guan Yu's face was solemn and serious, revealing a businesslike look. Wei Hong's heart skipped a beat when he saw this, as if he had a premonition that something bad was going to happen. He suddenly became stern in his heart, and his face followed with a solemn expression. Of course, Dao Guan, please. He and Guan Yu were quite familiar with each other, and it was definitely not a small matter that could make Guan Yu look like this. Wei Hong knew this, but he was still a little curious about what had happened. Guan Yu took Wei Hong to a lounge. After he sat down, his expression suddenly relaxed. Then he immediately approached Wei Hong and whispered, Dao Wei, have you offended anyone recently? Wei Hong was stunned. He was a little confused by Guan Yu's words. He was stunned for a while before asking, Dao Guan, what do you mean? I have always lived in seclusion and it seems that I have never offended anyone. But when he said this, Wang Xianheng's figure subconsciously appeared in his mind. Naturally, before Guan Yu answered, he directly thought of the Blood Spirit sect, and subconsciously guessed that what Guan Yu wanted to say must be related to the Blood Spirit sect. When Guan Yu heard Wei Hong's answer, he looked at him with a complicated expression and said, because half an hour ago, our deputy pavilion master suddenly issued a task and designated you, Wei Dao, to be responsible for completing this task. You cannot refuse or delay. You must set out within 1 day. What? Wei Hong was shocked when he heard this. His uneasiness instantly became extremely strong. His face became gloomy because of this. He immediately asked, is this true? What kind of task could make the deputy pavilion master personally issue it? And why did he ask me to complete it? Also, where are we going? Are we leaving the Immortal City? Wei Hong asked questions continuously, as if he had anticipated an extremely bad result. At this moment, he really understood why Guan Yu asked him that just now. Guan Yu seemed to have anticipated Wei Hong's reaction. A trace of pity and helplessness appeared on his face. He sighed and explained, Dao Wei, this is the content of the task. You can take a look first. As for why the deputy pavilion master issued it and designated you to complete this task, Guan, I don't know, and I can't answer you. After that, he handed over a jade slip. Wei Hong's face looked extremely ugly. After taking the jade slip, he immediately put it between his eyebrows to check it. After a moment, he opened his eyes. At this time, his face became as black as the bottom of a pot. The whole person exuded a burst of anger. The fingers holding the jade slip creaked, and the joints turned white because of the force. Dao Guan, is the pavilion correct? Let me go out of the city to complete the task at this time? Whose idea is this? Why do you want me to complete it? Wei Hong suppressed the anger in his heart and gritted his teeth to ask Guan Yu. Chapter 759, Life and Death Dilemma. At this moment, the atmosphere in the lounge seemed extremely depressing. The reason why Wei Hong was so shocked and angry was because the content in the jade slip was hard for him to accept. There was a mandatory task in the jade slip, and Wei Hong was designated to complete this task. The content of the task was that a market under the control of the Immortal City was suddenly contaminated by miasma for some reason some time ago, and an elite alchemist was urgently needed to go to the market in person to solve the problem, and the solution to the problem was to develop a detoxification pill that could restrain the miasma. If this market was in the Immortal City, it would be fine, but this was also the most difficult point for Wei Hong to accept. The location of the market was at the junction of the Siphon Plain and the Qianling Mountains, right next to the forest, so if he wanted to complete this task, he had to leave the Immortal City and go to the market in person. This meant that Wei Hong's previous idea of staying in the city was completely lost. Moreover, the reason was also explained in the task content. It was because the market was located on the edge of the mountain range, and it attracted casual cultivators to enter the mountain range to hunt monsters all year round. Therefore, it could receive a large amount of monster materials from the surviving casual cultivators every year, and the profit was very considerable. This was why the Xiancheng could not give up the market. Now the market was polluted by miasma. If this problem could not be solved, the income of the market would be greatly reduced. This was also the result that the Xiancheng did not want to see. Therefore, it confronted the Danwang Pavilion with such a mandatory task. The deputy pavilion master of the Danwang Pavilion did not know why he knew about Wei Hong's existence, so he assigned this mandatory task to Wei Hong and specified that he must complete it. This was all the content recorded in the Jade Slip. This was also the reason why Wei Hong was so angry after reading it. In such a sensitive period, in such a turbulent and crisis-filled moment, he was suddenly arranged to complete the task outside the city. Faced with such a sudden change, or even an unwarranted disaster without any signs, who could remain indifferent? Everyone knows that the city is full of dangers. The evil cultivators of the Blood Spirit sect have been watching closely. It is unknown how many people are ambushing outside the city. If you go out now, wouldn't it mean you are going to die? Therefore, after reading the content of the task, Wei Hong's first reaction was that someone must be behind this, trying to lure him out of the city, or even trying to kill him. He immediately noticed something was wrong, so he asked Guan Yu in anger. Guan Yu was not surprised by Wei Hong's reaction. He sighed and said, "Alice, fellow Taoist Wei, the mission is absolutely correct. It was issued by the deputy pavilion master himself. As for the reason, the Jade Slip should have made it clear. As for the rest, Guan Yu doesn't know either. I just have a heartfelt message for you. I hope you will consider it carefully. Since the pavilion has said that this is a mandatory mission, you are not allowed to refuse. If you don't accept or complete it, it will be difficult for you to gain a foothold in the Danwang Pavilion, and it will also give others a reason to deal with you. After all, we receive the salary of the Danwang Pavilion and enjoy the benefits of the Danwang Pavilion. We also have the obligation to contribute to the Danwang Pavilion. What do you think? Fellow Taoist Wei, please think about it carefully. Guan Yu will take your leave first." After that, Guan Yu looked at Wei Hong with sympathy. Without waiting for Wei Hong to respond, he got up and left the lounge. Wei Hong's face was uncertain, and his thoughts were constantly rolling in his mind. According to his heart, such a mission to send one to death is absolutely unacceptable. Even if it is a mandatory mission, he must find a way to refuse it. However, Guan Yu's two heartfelt words just now kept appearing in his mind, making him think that it was indeed very reasonable. Because what Guan Yu said was indeed correct. Since he joined Danwang Pavilion, he has been receiving Danwang Pavilion's salary and enjoying Danwang Pavilion's benefits. Now Danwang Pavilion asked him to fulfill his obligations. There is no problem at all, and it is also what Wei Hong must bear. Moreover, Guan Yu also mentioned a point just now. This is a mandatory mission, and he cannot refuse it. If he does not accept or cannot complete it, it will make it difficult for him to gain a foothold in Danwang Pavilion in the future, and even give others a reason to deal with him. In this way, Wei Hong had to accept this mission. Damn it, this is not a conspiracy, this is clearly an open conspiracy, it is upright and can't be refused. Wei Hong sighed, and his face gradually became calm. Because he had figured out the key, especially Guan Yu's two words of persuasion, which made him understand his situation and knew that he really had no choice but to accept and complete the task. Wei Hong knew very well that this was definitely someone behind the scenes, and it was a trap for him, trying to lure him out of the city, which was the result the other party wanted to see the most. As long as he left Kengshan Immortal City, it would be too easy for the other party to do something. But he also knew that he could not refuse this task. Even if he left Dangwon Pavilion immediately, he might not complete this task, but the consequences might be more serious, which Wei Hong knew. Obviously, he could not avoid this mandatory task anyway. Since it can't be avoided, then we can only face the challenge. Wei Hong sighed lightly, and then his eyes became fierce. Who is it, Xiao Jin and Xiao Ming? Or the Tang family? No matter who you are, I hope you don't regret it. He didn't have much information now, and couldn't guess who was behind the trick. But Wei Hong was mentally prepared at this time. No matter who it was, the other party would definitely show up after he left the Immortal City. At that time, he wanted to see what means the other party had waiting for him. If they really regarded him as a weak prey, then he would let those people understand what life and death dilemma was. Humph, we must set off in one day, and you are so impatient. Wei Hong smiled coldly, and then left the lounge directly. He first went to the affairs hall to collect the certificate and token required for the mission. After thanking Guan Yu, he left the Dangwon Pavilion and came to the Treasure Pavilion. This time he appeared in his original appearance and did not need to hide anything. Wei Hong knew very well that since he could not refuse, he had to be fully prepared to avoid a capsize in the ditch. Therefore, he directly took out most of his family's assets, gritted his teeth and bought a large number of talismans and elixirs, as well as some things that could be used, and bought them all at the cost of spirit stones. He had a premonition that this might be the biggest crisis he had encountered since entering the world of immortal cultivation. He had to go all out and be cautious, not allowing himself to be careless. Otherwise, if he was not careful, he would most likely end up dead, which was not the result Wei Hong wanted to see. Chapter 761 Feng Market. One day later, Wei Hong left Kengshan Ferry City calmly. This time he did not change his appearance, but restrained his own aura, then flew up on his sword and rushed towards the direction of the mission target. Because he knew that if someone really wanted to deal with him, even if he changed his appearance, it would be useless, because the mission location was very clear, and as long as he went to the mission location, he would definitely be targeted. Therefore, Wei Hong was cautious and alert all the way, and his speed was neither fast nor slow, striving to be able to respond quickly in case of unexpected situations. Even in his sleeves, there were some talismans and a few paper figures, which could be said to be fully prepared. But what Wei Hong did not expect was that he had not encountered any attacks or accidents along the way. Until he arrived at a market called Wanfen, he was still a little confused. No way? Am I overthinking? Or do you want to wait until I return to the city before taking action? Wei Hong frowned, but he was puzzled. But at this time, he could not think too much. Since he had arrived at the destination, he could only go in and take a look. After all, completing the mission was the most important thing. However, before Wei Hong landed, he saw that the market in front of him had completely opened the protective formation, and there was a layer of light black mist outside. The black mist spread and rolled outside the formation, as if it wanted to invade the formation. However, the black mist was not thick and the scale was not large, but it gave people a weird feeling, as if it was not an ordinary mist. Is that miasma? Wei Hong frowned slightly, with some doubts in his eyes. Pressing the sword light and coming to the front of the market gate, he waved his hand, and two rays of light shot out and hovered directly outside the formation. The two rays of light were surprisingly two tokens. One was his identity token as a deacon in Dangwon Pavilion, and the other was the token to prove this mission. There were two guards behind the gate of the market. When they saw this scene, their faces changed immediately. They first bowed respectfully to Wei Hong, and then one of the guards immediately sent out a communication talisman. Soon, a middle-aged man who looked a little tired came to the gate of the market. He was a little puzzled when he saw Wei Hong, and then he immediately saw the two tokens that Wei Hong took out. His face changed immediately, and a hint of surprise appeared in his eyes. He hurriedly opened the formation to greet him. Haha, is it a fellow Taoist from Dangwon Pavilion? I don't know what your name is. I am Qin Lin. I am sorry for not welcoming you from afar. Fellow Taoist, please come in quickly. Wei Hong did not leave immediately, but bowed and smiled. I am Wei Hong, the third-rank deacon of Dangwon Pavilion. Meet fellow Taoist Qin. Haha, fellow Taoist, you are here at the right time. Please come in quickly. Qin Lin led the way in front, and Wei Hong put away the token and followed him into the market. After entering the market, Qin Lin immediately closed the formation passage. At this time, Wei Hong turned around and asked, Fellow Taoist Qin, the pavilion suddenly issued a task, saying that your place has been contaminated by miasma. I wonder what caused it? Fellow Taoist Qin, please introduce the situation here to Wei. Of course. Qin Lin led Wei Hong forward and said, I would have told you even if you didn't ask. To be honest with you, our market is close to the Qianling Mountains, and there happens to be a lot of miasma around. There are often some key training cultivators who accidentally get contaminated by the miasma, and the miasma enters their bodies, making those cultivators feel like they are poisoned. Originally this was nothing, you just needed to be careful, but for some reason some time ago, the miasma around suddenly spread to a large area, and it became difficult to detect, and many cultivators accidentally fell into the trap. That's why I wanted to ask the alchemist from the Dangwon Pavilion to come and take a look. It would be best if they could develop an antidote. Qin Lin briefly introduced to Wei Hong the current situation in the market, and at the same time enthusiastically wanted to welcome him. However, Wei Hong had a vague feeling of uneasiness in his heart, so he would not waste time here, so he immediately said, don't bother with other things, fellow Taoist Qin, let's start as soon as possible. If we complete the task earlier, Wei can also return to the city earlier. What do you think? Okay, I'll do as you say. I wonder how Qin should cooperate with you? Qin Lin asked. Wei Hong thought about it and immediately replied, first, prepare a batch of spiritual materials that are usually used to refine detoxification pills, and then bring a few monks who are infected with miasma to see me. I need to examine their bodies in person. If possible, it would be best if you can take me to see the miasma. He directly put forward a series of requirements, obviously wanting to study the miasma and the poison people carefully. And Qin Lin nodded without hesitation and said, okay, these are all no problem, Qin will have someone prepare it right away. Qin Lin also knew that whether this matter could be solved depended on Wei Hong, so when faced with these requirements, he would only fully cooperate and did not dare to be negligent at all. Wei Hong was soon invited to a spacious alchemy room, where many spiritual flowers and herbs that were usually used to refine detoxifying pills were piled up, and 3 or 4 key training monks came in one after another. These people looked gloomy, their breath was weak, and they looked like they were poisoned. Qin Lin then introduced, Dao Wei, these people are monks who are infected with miasma, please be careful. Wei Hong nodded and cast his eyes on the monks. He slowly approached the monks, first carefully observed them with his naked eyes, and then scanned them with his spiritual sense. He found that these monks not only had weak breath, but also some black miasma remained in their bodies, attached to their meridians and spiritual power, which made them look like they were poisoned. Wei Hong frowned slightly, turned to look at Qin Lin and asked, fellow Taoist Qin, how long have they been infected with miasma? These miasma seem to be different from ordinary miasma. They can pollute spiritual power and cannot be dispelled by ordinary means. Qin Lin immediately replied, that's right, these miasma are very strange. They should have been infected with miasma for about 7 days. Taoist friend, what have you found? No big discovery yet, let's do it step by step, I will study it first. Wei Hong shook his head, but he was not too disappointed. He didn't take this task to heart, but was worried that he didn't know when he would be attacked, so he kept his eyes on it and was on guard in secret. Even Qin Lin was one of the targets he guarded against. But only he knew all this, and he didn't show any abnormality. Then Wei Hong officially entered the research state. He first carefully examined the bodies of the poisoned people, and gave them some ordinary detoxification pills to swallow, and recorded the effects. He also tried to open the furnace to refine pills and refine a new batch of detoxification pills to see if they were effective. In this way, Wei Hong stayed in this market for 7 days. Chapter 761 Grind the bones and scatter the ashes to avenge blood revenge. 7 days later, Qin Lin enthusiastically sent Wei Hong to the gate of the market and said to him, haha, fellow Taoist Wei, why don't you stay for a few more days, so that Qin can do his best to be a good host? Wei Hong directly refused and said, thank you for your kindness, fellow Taoist Qin, but I am in a hurry to go back to report, so I can only come back to bother you when I have time in the future. After a few days of research, Wei Hong successfully found the right detoxification pill and refined it. After testing, he found that it can indeed restrain the miasma and remove the poison from the miasma. In this way, he left the pill formula to Qin Lin and asked him to find an alchemist to refine it himself, or buy it from the Dangwon Pavilion. In short, he completed the task. After completing the task, Wei Hong didn't want to stay for a day, just because his uneasiness in his heart was getting stronger and stronger. It seemed that there was a pair of imperceptible eyes staring at him from behind, and the feeling of being spied on was getting stronger and stronger, so he just wanted to return to the fairy city as soon as possible. Of course, he was also very clear that he would be attacked once he left the market. But he also knew that what was coming would always come, and there was no need to hide if it could not be avoided. Instead of being watched in the dark, it was better to take the initiative to show up and lure the other party out, and then completely solve this hidden danger. Therefore, Wei Hong was ready for a big battle before leaving the market. Qinlin saw that Wei Hong was determined and did not want to persuade him, so he bowed and said, "In this case, Qin will not see you off, and take care, fellow Taoist Wei." "Okay, fellow Taoist Qin, goodbye." Wei Hong also clasped his fists and bowed, and then immediately flew up on his sword without looking back. After leaving the market, he immediately became alert. He released his spiritual sense without hesitation, so as not to be attacked by someone without knowing it, and his spiritual sense could also allow him to respond in advance, so that he would not be without reaction time no matter what attack he encountered. The 6 paper figures were directly buckled in his left hand, and there were more than 10 self-destructing talismans hidden in his sleeves. In his right hand, he held the second-grade Biquan sword. He had already worn the imperial scale armor, but it was covered by the outer robe. This inner armor was also his last defense. Wei Hong's flying speed at this time was extremely fast, like a stream of light passing through the air. But just after he left the market, just when he came to the sky above a dense forest, 2 sword lights instantly shot up from the dense forest and strangled Wei Hong. At the same time, 7 or 8 auras of varying strengths appeared around him in an instant, and enveloped Wei Hong tightly, and locked his aura, surrounding him directly in the middle. Wei Hong's face changed, and he stretched out his hand and pointed. The Biquan sword in his right hand shot out with a whoosh, and the 2 sword lights were stopped by 2 clangs. However, because of the blockade of several auras around him, he could only be forced to stop in mid-air. "What do you mean? Why are you stopping me?" Wei Hong's face was as cold as frost, and he looked coldly at the 8 figures that appeared around him. Seeing Wei Hong was able to block 2 flying swords at the same time, Xiao Jin's expression flashed a trace of surprise, and then he looked at Wei Hong with the eyes of a dead man, and laughed coldly. "What do you mean? Can't you see? We are going to kill you." The 8 auras locked onto Wei Hong, but it was not known whether it was because of the absolute advantage in numbers or the absolute confidence in their own strength. Xiao Jin and others did not rush to take action, and even the 2 flying swords at the beginning were called back by him. Wei Hong's heart shuddered. From the undisguised auras of the 8 figures around him, it was clear that there was a perfect foundation-building cultivator. This person should be Xiao Ming of the Xiao family. He had seen the wanted order issued by the Immortal City. He did not expect that the 2 survivors of the Xiao family were the ones behind the scenes. There were also 2 late-stage foundation-building cultivators. The person who just spoke was one of them. It seemed that he should be Xiao Jin, Xiao Ming's cousin. The rest were 3 mid-stage foundation-building cultivators and 2 early-stage foundation-building cultivators. Such a lineup was used to deal with a cultivator in the middle stage of foundation establishment. I don't know whether to say that they were too cautious or that they valued Wei Hong too much. After hearing what Xiao Jin said, Wei Hong pretended to sigh and said, "Everyone, the 8 of you just wanted to kill me? Is it that necessary? I don't seem to have any grudges against you. Why are you attacking me?" "No grudges." Xiao Jin laughed angrily when he heard this, and then said with a ferocious face, "Haha, no grudges? How can you say such a thing? Wei Hong, do you really not recognize me? You caused our Xiao family to be wiped out, but now you say there is no grudge? It's really ridiculous." "Oh? Xiao family?" It turned out to be the 2 surviving members of the Xiao family. Wei Hong pretended to be enlightened, then frowned and sneered, "I have a little grudge with your Xiao family, but it was you who caused trouble for me. Now you push the responsibility of annihilating the family onto me, Wei Hong. This is really ridiculous. Did you see me take action? Or was it me who gave your Xiao family's ancestor the evil skills he practiced? A family that defected to an evil sect was wiped out, and in the end, they threw dirty water on my head. How can you say that?" Since the other party did not want to take action immediately, but wanted to confront him, Wei Hong was naturally happy to cooperate, so that he could have more time to prepare. Wei Hong's thoughts turned rapidly, and he began to think quickly about how to deal with the current dilemma. The other party suddenly came with 8 foundation building cultivators, and half of them had a higher cultivation level than him. On the surface, this was an absolute dead end, otherwise Xiao Jin and others would not be so confident, as if they had already defeated him. But Wei Hong was not desperate, he even had the confidence to break free from the encirclement. Because Xiao Jin and others knew nothing about his strength, and had no idea what kind of means he had. He believed that as long as he used thundering means and took advantage of the other party's carelessness to kill 2 or 3 people first, he could slowly deal with the rest with formations and other means, so that the danger could be greatly reduced. After thinking about these clearly, Wei Hong was also determined in his heart. Xiao Jin was furious when he heard this, and he shouted, "A small casual cultivator dared to provoke a fight between our Xiao family and the Tang family. Wei Hong, do you think that no one will find out that you attacked and killed our Xiao family members? If it weren't for you, how could our ancestor fight to the death with the ancestor of the Tang family? If it weren't for you, how could the traces of evil skills be revealed? If it weren't for you, our Xiao family wouldn't have ended up like this. Boy, today is the day you die. I will grind you to ashes to avenge my blood feud. Kill you." Xiao Jin waved his big hand with a ferocious face, and a sword light shot towards Wei Hong again. Seeing that Xiao Jin had already made a move, except for Xiao Ming in front of him, the other 6 foundation building cultivators also made a move, either offering spiritual weapons or casting spells, and their targets were all Wei Hong, who was trapped in the middle. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 762, Breakthrough and Kill. 8 people surrounded and killed him. At this moment, Wei Hong fell into an extremely dangerous, desperate situation. If he was not careful, he might be crushed to pieces, or even blasted to pieces by the surrounding foundation building monks. Wei Hong's eyes turned cold, but his movements were faster than Xiao Jin and others. Because he had already prepared for action, he moved before Xiao Jin shouted. He first threw a self-destructing talisman towards the direction where Xiao Jin and others were, and then sacrificed the flying black iron shield to protect himself. Finally, he stepped lightly and controlled the flying sword to fly towards the 2 enemies behind him. This series of actions was as fast as fire, and it was beyond the expectations of Xiao Jin and others. At the moment they just made a move, 8 self-destructing talismans had already flown in front of them and exploded violently. Boom! A series of earth-shattering noises accompanied by huge flames rose in the air. Xiao Jin and the others had never expected that Wei Hong could cast such a terrifying talisman. A few of them were caught off guard and suffered a loss. Xiao Jin's face changed when he felt the power of the explosion. Then he immediately put up a thick spiritual shield and immediately threw out a shield, blocking the self-destructing talisman without any damage. As for Xiao Ming, it was easy for him to block such a self-destructing talisman with his perfect foundation building strength. But for those cultivators in the middle and early stages of foundation building, such a powerful self-destructing talisman was terrifying. The 2 mid-stage foundation building monks and 1 late-stage foundation building monk on the left and right sides had not yet had time to sacrifice their own spiritual weapons, and the self-destruction talisman had already exploded. The 2 flying swords were directly enveloped by the power of the explosion, and they immediately let out a whine, and the spiritual light on the flying swords also dimmed. In addition to the late-stage foundation building monk, the other 2 mid-stage foundation building monks were also hit by the residual power of the explosion because they could not react in time. They vomited blood and their breath became weak. The 2 monks behind Wei Hong, one was in the middle stage of the foundation building, and the other was in the early stage of the foundation building. After they felt the power of the self-destruction talisman, their faces changed drastically, especially the early stage foundation building monk, who was terrified. Even though he had responded in time, he was still vomiting blood repeatedly, and the whole person almost fell off the flying sword. But at this time, Wei Hong had quickly approached. The target he chose this time was the slightly injured mid-stage foundation building monk. He quickly approached before the other party could react, and then waved his big hand violently. A huge sword light of a length of several feet shot out from his right hand, and fiercely chopped down in the terrified eyes of the mid-stage foundation building cultivator. Puff! The cultivator and his spiritual shield were directly cut into two halves by the terrible power of the green sword light. Blood spurted out instantly, and then immediately dripped from the air. Wei Hong didn't even look at the chopped cultivator. At the same time, he gently waved his left hand, and a thin needle that seemed invisible shot out instantly, leaving a finger-sized blood hole directly between the eyebrows of the seriously injured early-stage foundation-building cultivator, causing the man to fall from the air instantly. Then he stretched out his hand and the invisible needle returned to his hand. From him throwing out the self-destructing talisman to approaching the two cultivators, and then beheading them, the whole process happened in just a few breaths, like a thunderbolt that made people unable to react in time. Even Xiao Ming, who had the highest cultivation, had not yet reacted, and then the two foundation-building cultivators were completely killed by Wei Hong. In order to break through, Wei Hong dared not hide anymore. And after killing the two cultivators, he immediately pressed down the sword light, and the whole person instantly plunged into the dense forest below, as if he was going to break through and escape. It was not until then that Xiao Ming reacted. His face became extremely ferocious because of anger. Without thinking, he chased after Wei Hong and roared, "Quick, chase him, don't let him escape." The furious Xiao Ming was full of momentum, his consciousness locked Wei Hong tightly, and chased him at a faster speed, wanting to kill him directly. Xiao Jin and others also quickly followed, their faces were all extremely gloomy. Wei Hong's move can be said to be a slap in their face. 8 people besieged one person, not only were 2 killed in return, if he escaped, how could they have the face to mix in the world of immortal cultivation in the future? While Wei Hong was swiftly diving into the dense forest below, he observed the movements behind him and sneered in his heart, "HMPH, come on, let your Cao family be completely exterminated today." The reason why he chose to enter the dense forest on the ground was not to escape, but to better meet the enemy, and at the same time to break the enemy's encirclement of him, so that he could better control the situation. After diving into the dense forest, Wei Hong first threw a fog talisman to the front, back, left and right. With a bang, a large area of fog that could block the divine consciousness appeared in the dense forest. Taking advantage of this opportunity, he directly threw the 6 paper figures around, allowing them to take the opportunity to hide in the fog and disperse, and then he stayed where he was, and did not flee anymore. Looking up at Xiao Ming who was chasing him, Wei Hong was not afraid at all. He threw 5 self-destructing talismans at Xiao Ming with his backhand, but he took this opportunity to immediately make a hand gesture. Xiao Ming, who was the first to chase down, had a slightly changed expression. Facing the power of the 5 self-destructing talismans, even he did not dare to be careless. He immediately stopped his momentum of flying down, and then waved his hand. A gray round bead emerged, and the round bead immediately ejected a layer of gray light shield to cover Xiao Ming. Boom! A series of explosions bombarded the gray light shield, which only made the light shield vibrate repeatedly, but never broke the light shield, and Xiao Ming inside was naturally unharmed. At this time, Xiao Jin and others also chased down, and after avoiding the aftermath of the explosion, they immediately surrounded Wei Hong. At this time, Wei Hong had just finished casting a spell. He shouted loudly and suddenly urged his spiritual power. 3 huge and hard green vines like dragons broke out of the ground directly. The sturdy green vines immediately swept towards Xiao Jin and others, as if they were going to beat them into meat patties. And Wei Hong did not forget to throw several talismans at each of them, including self-destruct talismans and Tianjia talismans. Xiao Jin and others wanted to attack Wei Hong, but they didn't expect that Wei Hong would take the initiative. So they could only block the attack of the Kaiyongguang King Tang technique, and at the same time defend against the attacks of those talismans. For a while, they were dragged in place. At this time, Wei Hong's mind moved, and he controlled the 6 paper figures hidden around to immediately take out a pole of formation flags. The 6 paper figures quickly shot out the formation flags in their hands and instantly arranged them in a specific position. The next moment, with a buzzing sound, a giant green light curtain rose up. Chapter 763 Combined Formation. The green light curtain instantly enveloped Xiao Jin, Xiao Ming and the others. The 6 absolute green thunder formation controlled by the 6 paper figures was finally successfully deployed at this moment. Wei Hong's mind moved, and he let the paper figures control the formation to launch an attack. At this time, he did not intend to leave the formation. Instead, he quickly approached the cultivator with the worst cultivation in the early stage of foundation building, and raised his hand, and a green sword light flew out first. Ah! Save me. The cultivator in the early stage of foundation building was originally unable to withstand the powerful attack of the dragon green vine technique. When he saw Wei Hong coming towards him, he was frightened and screamed. But at this time, the other people were temporarily restrained. Although Xiao Ming was safe and sound in the residual power of the 5 self-destructing talismans, he could not get away for the time being. Xiao Jin and others were also stopped by 3 dragon-like green vines. Ling. Xiao Jin controlled the flying sword and slashed at the huge green vine, but it could only leave a white mark. The flying sword was also bounced away with a clang, and it was completely unable to remove the green vine. Xiao Jin's face changed slightly. He didn't expect that this green vine was so hard. He also saw Wei Hong's actions at this time, and he shouted angrily, "Wei Hong, you are looking for death." The furious Xiao Jin was about to cast a spell, but at this time, dense green thunder suddenly hit his head. Boom! The dense green thunder enveloped Xiao Jin and others, making them busy again. They could not be distracted at all, and could only resist the green thunder that kept falling from the sky above their heads. Moreover, the power of these blue thunders was extremely terrifying. Except for Xiao Jin, Xiao Ming and another late foundation building cultivator, the remaining 2 mid-foundation building cultivators felt suffocated after only bearing 1 wave. Not only did they consume a huge amount of spiritual power, but they were also shaken by the blue thunders and their mouths began to bleed. If they continued to resist, they would probably die here after a few more waves. But before they could find a way to escape from the blue thunders, a shrill scream reached everyone's ears. The Bigquan sword circled lightly and directly cut the early foundation building cultivator in half. With Wei Hong's current strength, it didn't take any effort to deal with an early foundation building cultivator. A flying sword was enough to easily kill the enemy, and the early foundation building cultivator couldn't stop it. So far, 3 of the 8 cultivators who surrounded Wei Hong had been killed. Xiao Ming's eyes were red with anger. He stretched out his hand and pointed. A golden sword light shot out from his hand and rushed straight to the dark cloud in the sky. It instantly dispersed most of the dark cloud and made the blue thunder in the dark cloud become sparse. Xiao Jin and others were overjoyed and hurriedly got out of the blue thunder's coverage area. The next moment, Xiao Ming looked at Wei Hong with a cold look that he wanted to devour. He didn't want to say anything more to Wei Hong. He stretched out his hand and pointed at Wei Hong. The golden sword light rushed straight to Wei Hong from midair. At the same time, Xiao Ming immediately made hand gestures and muttered something. A huge black chain appeared in front of him. The chain instantly escaped into the air and entangled Wei Hong. After Xiao Jin and others got out of the blue thunder, they immediately attacked with anger. The sword light flashed and the spells burst out, aiming at Wei Hong one after another. But Wei Hong smiled lightly at this time, and before those attacks approached, he quickly retreated, and the next moment he came directly outside the formation. Boom! The next moment, whether it was the golden sword light or the dark chain, they were all blocked in the formation, and could not cause any harm to Wei Hong outside the formation. Damn it, this is a combined formation. The power is much stronger than the general second level upper grade formation. Quick, attack together to break the formation first. Xiao Ming was very knowledgeable and recognized the details of this formation at a glance, so he immediately roared, controlled the golden flying sword and slashed at the green light curtain fiercely. Xiao Jin and others did not dare to neglect, and they all attacked to break the formation. However, Wei Hong would not let them have their way. He first asked 6 paper figures to reinforce the formation, and then he threw his hand, and dozens of talismans shot towards Xiao Ming and others in the formation. Among these talismans, there were both self-destructing talismans and thousand-blade talismans and sky spear talismans. In short, they were all offensive talismans. However, he underestimated Xiao Ming, a cultivator who had completed the foundation building. Xiao Ming was controlling the gray round bead with a cold face. A gray light actually blocked all the attacks of the talismans. However, the gray round bead also had fine cracks and was about to be scrapped. However, Xiao Ming did not feel distressed at all. He was full of vigor and exerted his spiritual power to condense a huge golden sword in the air, and then uttered a word coldly, "Cut." Puff. The huge golden sword slashed down fiercely, and the attacks of Xiao Jin and others also bombarded the green light curtain. Wei Hong's face changed, but he didn't expect that he still underestimated the terrifying power of the foundation building. The next moment, the green light curtain was completely split by the golden sword, and then the entire 6 absolute green thunder formation was broken, and the 6 paper figures were also backfired by the formation at this moment, and turned directly into ashes. But Wei Hong was not a man who would sit back and wait for death. Since the formation had been broken, he believed that Xiao Ming and others would never give him the opportunity to set up the formation again, so he gritted his teeth, took out the Zuanayu ring and directly sacrificed it. Whoosh! The Zuanayu ring turned into a beam of mysterious light and shot out, pointing directly at a mid-stage foundation building cultivator. In addition, Wei Hong flicked his hand and shot out several self-destructing talismans. Those self-destructing talismans were naturally intended to stop Xiao Ming and others, and the mid-stage foundation building cultivator who was locked by Wei Hong's aura changed his face at this time. He had already seen that Wei Hong's strength was definitely not inferior to that of the late stage of foundation building, and he was simply not able to resist it alone. So the mid-stage foundation building cultivator retreated frantically while taking out a stack of talismans from his storage bag and activating them directly. But in the next moment, the Zuanayu ring directly passed through the layers of protective shields formed by the talismans, and then turned into a 3-foot-long ring and appeared at the waist of the mid-stage foundation building cultivator, and finally tightened it fiercely. Ah! The mid-stage foundation building cultivator under the control of the Zuanayu ring screamed, and the next moment Wei Hong appeared in front of him. Puff! A hazy sword light appeared on Wei Hong's right palm, and then he slashed it down fiercely. The mid-stage foundation building cultivator was instantly cut in half, and he was unable to respond at all. The several layers of shields on his body were also directly broken by the slash, and he had no resistance at all. Wei Hong killed another person. But his face suddenly changed at this time, because a golden flying sword had quietly come behind him. Even though Wei Hong had already released his spiritual consciousness, he didn't notice it until the flying sword was in front of him. The next moment, this golden flying sword stabbed him fiercely from the back. A layer of green shield instantly emerged from Wei Hong's body, but it was still pierced by the golden flying sword. Chapter 764, Substitution Technique. Die? When Xiao Ming saw the golden flying sword piercing through the green shield, his face became distorted with excitement. Sure enough, the next moment the golden flying sword directly pierced Wei Hong's body. Seeing this scene, not only Xiao Ming, but also Xiao Jin and others were overjoyed, and their minds relaxed. But the next scene suddenly made their faces change drastically, because after Wei Hong was pierced by the flying sword, although he vomited a large mouthful of blood, his body suddenly disappeared from the spot with a bang, leaving only a 3-foot-long tree trunk in the place, and the flying sword just pierced the body of the tree trunk. Wei Hong activated the Renmu substitute technique at the last moment and successfully avoided this killing move. Wei Hong's figure now appeared on the other side away from Xiao Ming, his face slightly pale. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said coldly, as expected of a master who has completed the foundation building, "He is really amazing." He didn't expect that his green sword shield and imperial scale armor could not block the golden flying sword, and his body was directly pierced. If it weren't for the Minmu substitute technique, he would have died at this moment. Therefore, Wei Hong's eyes looking at Xiao Ming also became extremely cold. Hundreds of vitality points quietly flowed to his body, directly recovering the injuries that appeared after performing the substitute technique. Xiao Ming and others were full of disbelief. They didn't expect Wei Hong to have such a substitute technique. Okay, you are worthy of being the one who caused our Xiao family to be wiped out. It's really not simple. Xiao Jia was stunned for a moment, and then immediately laughed coldly. Substitute technique, right? Then I want to see how many times you can dodge. Buzz! As Xiao Ming pointed, the golden flying sword shot towards Wei Hong again. Wei Hong knew that the golden flying sword was definitely a second-level top-grade spiritual weapon. Not only was it extremely sharp, but it also became very powerful in the hands of a cultivator like Xiao Ming who had completed the foundation building. He could not resist it. Thinking of this, he immediately took a deep breath. Although he was shocked, he reached out and touched the storage bag. 6 more paper figures appeared in his hand. Go! Wei Hong shouted and threw the 6 paper figures directly out. After the 6 paper figures landed, they instantly swelled up in the wind and became the size of a person. Then they separated in twos and killed Xiao Jin and the other 2. Obviously, Wei Hong was going to use the 6 paper figures to temporarily restrain Xiao Jin and the other 2. Because he knew that Xiao Ming was the person who posed the greatest threat to him. As long as he could deal with Xiao Ming, the other three would not pose any threat. On the contrary, if Xiao Ming was allowed to attack him continuously, he would not only be restricted, but also very likely to be in a fatal crisis. Therefore, he had already made up his mind that he had to deal with Xiao Ming first. As for Xiao Jin and the other two, each of them had 2 paper figures to restrain them, and each of the paper figures had a lot of talismans in their hands, so it should not be a problem. Wei Hong went through all the arrangements and plans in his mind, and faced with a golden flying sword galloping on, he threw out 3 self-destructing talismans with a solemn face. Now the spiritual weapon on his body could not directly block Xiao Ming's golden flying sword, but he could use another method, that is, to use the self-destructing talisman to resist. Only the powerful one-time consumable talisman, such as the self-destructing talisman, could temporarily block the golden flying sword. As long as Xiao Ming did not want to see his flying sword damaged, he would not dare to use the flying sword to resist the explosion of the self-destructing talisman. As expected, when he saw the 3 self-destructing talismans exploded, Xiao Ming's face suddenly changed slightly, and he hurriedly controlled the golden flying sword to turn around immediately, not daring to let the flying sword pass through the explosion area. Wei Hong took this opportunity to immediately pinch his hands and summon 2 dragon green vines again to protect himself. Swish! With another flick of his hand, several mist talismans were shot out. The mist talismans exploded instantly, turning into thick mists that spread out in the forest. Wei Hong also took advantage of the cover of the mist and disappeared directly from Xiao Ming's sight. Then he took out another Lingayan talisman and slapped it directly on himself, and the whole person disappeared in the forest. Seeing this, Xiao Ming's face suddenly froze slightly, and he quickly used his spiritual sense to scan back and forth, but found that he had lost the trace of Wei Hong, and his heart couldn't help but tremble. "Pay attention, that kid is gone, be careful." Xiao Ming shouted a warning, and he did not forget to take out the gray round bead covered with fine cracks again. A layer of gray light that looked very thin protected Xiao Ming in the middle, and at the same time he continued to send out his spiritual sense to scan back and forth. At this time, Xiao Jin and the other 2 were each restrained by 2 paper figures. Although their lives were not in danger, they could not escape for the time being. Especially when they heard that Wei Hong had disappeared, they were all worried and afraid of being attacked, so they were even more restrained. Wei Hong ignored the intentions of Xiao Jin and the other 2, but quietly went behind Xiao Ming, and successfully came to a place not far behind Xiao Ming with the help of the cover of fog and the invisibility of the Lingayan talisman. The Lingayan talisman can indeed make him invisible temporarily, but there is a disadvantage, that is, as long as he uses spiritual power or spiritual tools, or moves violently, he will immediately reveal himself. Wei Hong came behind Xiao Ming, watching Xiao Ming's glance back and forth, and did not approach rashly, but slowly took out more than 20 self-destructing talismans from his arms, and at the same time fixed his eyes on the gray round bead on Xiao Ming's head. The next moment, Wei Hong's mind moved, and the Biquan sword shot straight at Xiao Ming, and his figure was revealed. Xiao Ming turned around with a sneer on his face, without the slightest surprise on his face. Facing Wei Hong's flying sword attack, he also controlled the golden flying sword to meet it directly. Wei Hong did not dare to let the green spring sword and the golden flying sword collide head-on, so he could only control the green spring sword and the golden flying sword to slowly circle around, and dodge the golden flying sword, not daring to touch it at all. However, in this way, Xiao Ming's golden flying sword was temporarily restrained. At this time, Wei Hong waved his hand, and the more than 20 self-destructing talismans shot towards Xiao Ming. Then he pinched his hands and controlled the 2 dragon green vines to wrap around Xiao Ming, trying to trap him in place and let him fully resist the power of the self-destructing talisman. At the same time, a faint and invisible small flying needle also flew out silently. Facing Wei Hong's series of attacks, Xiao Ming was not afraid at all. He pinched his hands and muttered something in his mouth. The aura of perfect foundation building was fully unfolded, locking Wei Hong tightly. Buzz! A golden giant sword suddenly appeared in the air, emitting an extremely sharp feeling. With the appearance of this golden giant scissors, Wei Hong felt as if his skin was being pricked by needles. Obviously, this golden giant scissors was absolutely extraordinary, making Wei Hong feel a great threat. Chapter 765, Embarrassed and Ferocious. Go. Xiao Ming uttered a word coldly. Buzz! The golden giant scissors set off a terrifying spiritual energy fluctuation in the air, and then cut towards Wei Hong fiercely. However, at this moment, a crisp sound was heard first. Bang! The invisible needle pierced the gray round bead straight, and instantly shattered the gray round bead that was already full of cracks. As the gray round bead broke, the gray light shield surrounding Xiao Ming also disappeared instantly. At this time, the more than 20 self-destructing talismans just shot in front of Xiao Ming and exploded wildly. Xiao Ming's face changed drastically. He didn't expect that his defense treasure would be directly shattered by Wei Hong's sneak attack. In this way, he had to face the terrifying power of the more than 20 self-destructing talismans. At this moment, Wei Hong and Xiao Ming encountered a fatal crisis at the same time. Xiao Ming was horrified and immediately put up a thick spiritual shield. Then he took out all kinds of defensive talismans, a shield and a triangular token, and used them to block in front of him. At the same time, he retreated frantically, trying to get out of the explosion area. However, the self-destructing talismans had completely exploded when Xiao Ming just offered the triangular token. The huge roar accompanied by the shocking fire completely enveloped Xiao Ming. On the other side, Wei Hong felt a fatal death crisis. When the golden giant shears locked him, he felt as if he was stared at by the god of death. His body became extremely heavy, and his soul trembled slightly. Damn it, this is definitely a second-level top-grade spell. Wei Hong roared in his heart, and at this moment he couldn't find a way to resist. Only then did he truly understand how big the gap between his strength and that of the perfect foundation-building cultivator was. However, Wei Hong was not panicked. Before the golden giant shears really cut down, he threw out dozens of various defensive talismans, and then the spiritual shield and the green sword shield also emerged. Only the black iron flying shield and the yellow umbrella were not taken out. This was because he was not absolutely sure that he could block this terrifying spell. After being locked by this spell, it was absolutely impossible to avoid it. The only way was to resist it. So after he made various defensive measures, he did not forget to throw out several self-destructing talismans again. Boom! Bang! Bang! A series of loud rumbling noises came, accompanied by other dull sounds. The shields formed by those defensive talismans were directly torn apart by the sharp power of the golden giant shears, and could not block it for half a breath. The terrible explosion formed by the self-destructing talismans did block the golden giant shears for a moment, but it only made the golden giant shears shake slightly, and did not cause much impact. The golden giant shears still strangled Wei Hong straight down. Wei Hong's eyes were firm, but at this moment he took the initiative to meet it. Puff! The golden giant shears strangled fiercely, and the spiritual shield and the green sword shield outside Wei Hong's body were instantly broken, and it seemed that even the imperial scales could not stop him at all. He was cut in half, and blood spurted out instantly. But when Wei Hong was cut in half, there was no scream at the scene, but a strange spiritual power fluctuation flashed, and the next moment Wei Hong's two halves of the body turned into two fresh tree trunks. Wei Hong used the Minmu substitute technique again. 10 feet away from the golden giant shears, his figure suddenly staggered out, his whole face was pale, and he looked bloodless, and his breath was also weak. Obviously, even if he used the Minmu substitute technique, Wei Hong was also seriously injured. After all, such a terrifying blow was not easy to take. But he had just stood still, and before he had time to catch his breath, he threw out 3 or 4 second-level low-grade spiritual weapons, and uttered a word coldly: explode. Boom! The 3 or 4 spiritual weapons exploded instantly, completely blowing up the golden giant scissors that had already attacked once. Huh? Wei Hong breathed a sigh of relief, and once again spent hundreds of vitality points to quietly recover from his injuries. But now the sequelae of the substitution technique have not been completely eliminated, and his face still looks a little pale. On the other side, after Xiao Ming was enveloped by a series of explosions, there was no other sound from the center of the explosion. Wei Hong couldn't tell whether Xiao Ming was alive or dead for a while. So his eyes turned cold, and he sacrificed the Zuan-Yu ring directly to the center of the explosion. At the same time, he immediately pinched his hands together, quickly mobilized the only half of the spiritual power left in his body, and while chanting something, he quickly approached the direction where Xiao Ming was. Buzz! At this time, a strong wind suddenly blew up from the center of the explosion, blowing out all the flames and smoke, and a slightly embarrassed figure emerged. Xiao Ming's face was pale at this time, and there were many traces of damage and black on his robe. The aura of the whole person was much weaker than before. Obviously, he was also injured in the strong explosion just now. Xiao Ming raised his head and looked in the direction of Wei Hong. His face was full of ferocity and violence. But before he could speak, the Zuanyu ring had already broken through the air, and Wei Hong followed closely behind. His eyes were also full of murderous intent and coldness. Xiao Ming's face changed slightly. He didn't expect that Wei Hong actually escaped the killing of his spell, and he didn't suffer much injury. This made Xiao Ming feel extremely shocked. Seeing Wei Hong coming, Xiao Ming immediately retreated. He was seriously injured at this time, so he naturally didn't want to fight with Wei Hong in close combat, but wanted to get a chance to breathe and rest well before attacking Wei Hong. But Wei Hong would never give him such an opportunity. The Zuanyu ring was extremely fast. It flashed suddenly and turned into a 3-foot-long ring in an instant and appeared on Xiao Ming's waist. Then it suddenly shrank and tightened. Xiao Ming was caught off guard and was immediately controlled. He fell out in the process of retreating. If he had not been injured before, he would not be afraid of a spiritual weapon like the Zuanyu ring. He could easily avoid it or even cut it off. But now Xiao Ming was seriously injured and was accidentally hit. Wei Hong was overjoyed when he saw this, and immediately shouted, "Seal it for me." Kingpin sealing technique. Buzz! Suddenly, a series of green spiritual lights appeared outside Xiao Ming's body. With Wei Hong's loud shout, the green spiritual lights suddenly crisscrossed and penetrated into Xiao Ming's body like a series of seals, and formed a layer of confinement spiritual light with countless mysterious runes outside his body, which bound Xiao Ming, who wanted to struggle to get up, in place, and his spiritual power was also sealed for a moment. The next moment, a hazy sword light suddenly slashed down at Xiao Ming from a distance of 10 feet. No! Xiao Ming's face was horrified, and he roared with despair in his eyes. He struggled hard, and the remaining spiritual power in his body instantly broke through the confinement of the seal. But the hazy sword light was faster, and before Xiao Ming could make any move, it had already slashed at his neck. Chapter 766, Killing All Around. Puff. A good head was chopped off and completely separated from the body. Blood instantly spurted out from the broken neck, and the smell of blood immediately spread in the forest. Under the powerful power of the green sword, Xiao Ming had little protection on his body, so he was immediately beheaded by Wei Hong and completely lost his life. But Wei Hong did not show any joy at this time, but his face changed drastically and he retreated madly. The next moment, Xiao Ming's headless body, which had originally wanted to struggle, exploded extremely violently, as if all the remaining spiritual power in Xiao Ming's body was compressed, and then immediately exploded. This was clearly because Xiao Ming knew that he could not escape, and just before he died, he just broke free from the confinement of the Kingpin sealing technique, so he held the idea of pulling Wei Hong to take the blame, and decisively launched a self-destruction before he died. Even though Wei Hong reacted very quickly, he was still affected by Xiao Ming's self-destruction. He had not retreated far, and only had time to sacrifice the yellow umbrella and condense a layer of green sword shield. Puff. He was blown away by the power of the explosion, and he spat out 2 mouthfuls of blood while still in midair. If it weren't for the 3 protective measures of the green light sword shield, the yellow umbrella, and the imperial scale armor, he might have been killed by Xiao Ming's self-explosion. Even now, the green light sword shield was broken, the yellow umbrella's spirituality was damaged, and even the innermost surface of the imperial scale armor had a slight dent, which obviously suffered great damage. Wei Hong's aura waned again, and his face became paler. As expected of a cultivator who has reached the perfect foundation, even death is not something that ordinary people can resist. Wei Hong struggled to stand up and gently wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He didn't expect Xiao Ming to be able to launch a self-explosion while being imprisoned by the Kingpin sealing technique, and he was seriously injured by a carelessness. This time he didn't use the Minmu substitute technique, mainly because he was a little careless. He didn't expect Xiao Ming's self-explosion before his death to be so terrifying. Fortunately, he blocked it. Ahem. At this time, Wei Hong couldn't help coughing up blood again. He knew the situation was urgent. Although Xiao Ming was dead, Xiao Jin and the other 2 were still around. He had to recover from his injuries immediately, otherwise he would fail. So the few remaining vitality points on his body began to flow into his body and Danshan, and he recovered from his serious injuries immediately. However, he killed 5 foundation building monks in a row, especially one foundation building perfect monk, which immediately increased his vitality points by almost 5,000. This gave him the capital to perform the Renmu substitute technique many times, and he could also use the vitality points to recover from his injuries. However, at this moment, a voice full of unwillingness and horror came from the other side. "Quick, let's retreat." Wei Hong immediately turned his head and found that the person who spoke was Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin was horrified at this moment. His eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. He had obviously seen Xiao Ming being killed, although he still couldn't accept this fact in his heart, but the cold fact also made him react. He knew that the ambush to kill Wei Hong was no longer possible. Now Xiao Ming was dead. He was the only one left in the Xiao family. He naturally didn't want to fight desperately. Now he just wanted to escape from here. The other two foundation building monks were frightened by the scene of Xiao Ming's death. Their faces turned pale. They even wanted to escape from here earlier, but under the entanglement of the two paper men, they were actually restrained in place. It was because those paper men had many attack-type talismans such as self-destructing talismans, thousand-blade talismans and sky spear talismans in their hands, which were all accumulated by Wei Hong for many years. If it weren't for these talismans, Xiao Jin and the other two would have escaped from the restraint of the paper men long ago. From the time Wei Hong released the paper man to the time he killed Xiao Ming, the process seemed very long, but in fact it only took half a cup of tea. Even Xiao Jin and the other two failed to react in time, let alone provide support. Seeing Xiao Jin and the other two trying to escape, how could Wei Hong let them do so? Want to leave? Xiao Jin, don't you want my life today? Don't you want to avenge your Xiao family? Why don't you do it? Wei Hong sneered coldly while killing Xiao Jin and the other two quickly. He waved his hand, and the Bikuan sword shot straight at Xiao Jin, who was restrained by the paper man. After Xiao Ming died, the unmanned golden flying sword naturally had no threat and fell directly into the mountains and forests, allowing Wei Hong's Bikuan sword to be pulled out. When Xiao Jin heard Wei Hong's words, his face was twisted and ferocious, and his face was full of hatred and resentment, wishing to kill Wei Hong immediately. But when he saw Xiao Ming's headless body not far away, it was like a basin of ice water poured over his head, making him completely sober. Then he didn't even have the slightest intention to answer Wei Hong. He gritted his teeth and risked being hit by the talismans thrown by the two paper figures. He suddenly retreated with the power of the talisman explosion. A layer of spiritual light shield flashed on his body. Although the corners of his mouth were bleeding from the shock, he still blocked the talismans triggered by the paper figures and retreated more than 10 feet away. The other two foundation building monks reacted faster when they saw that the situation was not good. One of them cast a spell to temporarily force back the two paper figures, and the other also learned from Xiao Jin to resist two attacks. The two of them retreated in different directions. Wei Hong seemed to have expected it. With a thought, several paper figures split into two teams and chased after the other two foundation building monks. Wei Hong first sacrificed the Zuanayu ring to Xiao Jin, and then immediately pinched his hands to cast a spell. "Here!" he shouted loudly, and in front of the other two foundation building monks who were fleeing, a thick green vine like a dragon broke out of the ground, and then the green vine with a metallic luster on the surface swung towards the two foundation building monks like a giant python. Ah! The two foundation building monks were shocked. Facing this attack, they could only stop immediately, and did not dare to resist, but dodged away. But taking advantage of this time, the 6 paper figures quickly approached and surrounded them. Seeing this situation, Wei Hong stopped caring about it and chased Xiao Jin fiercely. Xiao Jin did not notice the appearance of the Zuanayu ring, but when he saw Wei Hong chasing him, he was frightened and his face changed drastically. He also happened to catch a glimpse of a dark light appearing beside him. This discovery made Xiao Jin's soles tremble. But before he could react, the Zuanayu ring suddenly appeared between Xiao Jin's waists, just like it had imprisoned Xiao Ming before, and strangled him fiercely. Even though Xiao Jin had multiple layers of defense, he still felt desperate and terrified at this moment. The next moment, a green flying sword flew over at great speed, breaking through Xiao Jin's multiple layers of defense and directly cutting off his head. Chapter 767, Executed and Escaped. After a cup of tea, the forest became quiet again, with only Wei Hong's slightly heavy breathing. The strong smell of blood filled the entire forest, making all the snakes, insects, rats and ants silent. At this moment, 2 headless bodies fell at Wei Hong's feet. They were the last 2 foundation building monks. After killing Xiao Jin, The remaining 2 foundation building monks were caught up and killed by him before they could escape far under the restraint of the paper man. So far, under the leadership of Xiao Ming and Xiao Jin, the 8 foundation building monks who had come to kill Wei Hong had all been killed, and none survived. But Wei Hong also paid a heavy price for this. In the end, one of the 2 foundation building monks chose to self-destruct in despair, and the other took out a broken jade talisman. The power of the jade talisman was extremely terrifying, and it was not inferior to the golden giant scissors used by Xiao Ming. Therefore, he had to use the wood substitute technique again to avoid his killing move. Although he succeeded in killing the 2 men, he was also seriously injured. The sequelae of the continuous use of the Minoru substitute technique also broke out at this moment. Fortunately, after killing the 2 foundation building monks, he got about 2,000 vitality points again. With the effect of vitality points, he was able to recover from his injuries. Huh? Wei Hong let out a long sigh and said with a tired smile, "If I hadn't been prepared this time, the Xiao family might have succeeded. Damn the Xiao family, now they are finally wiped out." Even though his injuries had been healed by the vitality points, his spiritual power was almost exhausted at this time, and so was his spiritual consciousness. Frequent use, coupled with a large number of enemies, it was already very good that he could hold on, so at this moment Wei Hong looked extremely tired and in very poor condition. However, Wei Hong still forced himself to support his tired body and quickly collected all the storage bags and spiritual tools used by Xiao Ming, Xiao Jin and others. Not only that, when he thought of the cruelty of Xiao Ming and others, he also became ruthless in his heart. He immediately used the 10,000 souls banner to absorb the souls of the 8 foundation building monks, and even used the storage bag to take away the 8 bodies and their heads. After a moment, he immediately turned into a stream of green light and left the place. After leaving the battlefield for thousands of miles, Wei Hong immediately found a remote valley and drilled into it, then quickly opened up an underground secret room, and then used a formation to cover the entrance, and then entered the secret room to recuperate and heal his injuries. At the same time, less than half an hour after Wei Hong left the battlefield, a man suddenly came from the direction of Wanfang Market on a flying sword. The man soon reached the battlefield. When he saw the messy battlefield in the forest, his face was full of shock. He couldn't help muttering, "There's a big battle here. Who is it? The battle looks so fierce." This man was named Mu Sheng. He was another foundation building cultivator in Wanfang Market. When Wei Hong and Xiao Ming and others started fighting, Qin Lin and Mu Sheng in the market both felt the violent fluctuations of spiritual energy because this place was not far from Wanfang Market. They knew something must have happened. However, the 2 of them did not dare to approach immediately, because from what they sensed, the battle here was not something they could intervene in. If they were not careful, they might get burned. Therefore, after they sensed that the fluctuations of spiritual energy here had all subsided and waited for a stick of incense, Qin Lin asked Mu Sheng to come here to investigate the situation and see what happened. Mu Sheng immediately suppressed the sword light and came to the ground. Looking at the devastation and the large areas of the battlefield that looked extremely messy, Mu Sheng was more and more frightened, and his face became more and more solemn. Who on earth did this? How could such a shocking scene be created? Could it be a Jinden master? Mu Sheng couldn't help but take a breath of cold air, and his expression became a little stunned. He was a cultivator in the early stage of foundation building. Although he had not seen the battle just now, he could see from the obvious traces at the scene that there were definitely no less than 5 people who had just fought here, and the magic spells cast by these people and the lethality caused by the use of spiritual weapons were definitely beyond his reach. At this moment, Mu Sheng was not sure whether there were any Jinden masters among the people who had just fought. He only knew that everyone who participated in the battle was much stronger than him, so he was more and more frightened. The most important thing was that there were no corpses left here, and there were no signs of destroying the corpses, which was quite puzzling to him. What exactly is going on? Are there many people besieging one person, or is it a chaotic fight between the 2 sides? Mu Sheng stared at the battlefield for a long time with a solemn face, and couldn't help thinking, this place is so close to our market town. If something big happens, it will definitely affect our market town first. No, we must report to the Immortal City immediately, and ask the Immortal City to send professional surveyors to see what is going on. Mu Sheng made a decision immediately, and didn't even dare to delay for a moment. He first sent a communication talisman to Qin Lin in the market town, and then immediately flew to Kangshan Immortal City on his sword. More than 2 hours later, 4 sword lights of different colors suddenly flew from the direction of Kangshan Immortal City, and these 4 sword lights soon arrived above the battlefield. Mu Sheng was one of them. After he came to the sky above the battlefield, he immediately pointed to the forest below and said, "Deacon Wang, look, the battle site is below. It should be less than 4 hours before the battle ends." The 3 people next to him had already seen the devastated battlefield below without Mu Sheng's reminder. They were also very surprised. The middle-aged man in the middle, Wang Hongai, immediately said, "Let's go down and take a look. Deacon Mu and Deacon Han, you are responsible for guarding the surroundings, and Deacon Zhou and I will be responsible for investigating the scene." When Mu Sheng reported the matter, the Immortal City also attached great importance to it. After all, the war took place near Wanfang Market, and the evil cultivators of the Blood Spirit sect were unusually active recently. No one dared to guarantee whether this was done by the Blood Spirit sect. Therefore, the Immortal City immediately sent Wang Hongai, a first-grade deacon who was good at investigating the Immortal City, and Zhou Tong and Han Yuanpeng, 2 third-grade deacons, to assist on the scene. After hearing Wang Hongai's order, Mu Sheng and the other 2 immediately responded. So the 4 of them immediately pressed down their swords and came to the ground. Wang Hongai and Zhou Tong stayed where they were, while Mu Sheng and Han Yuanpeng immediately dispersed to the left and right, responsible for keeping watch in the vicinity to prevent anyone from approaching without knowing it. Wang Hongai looked at the messy battlefield and couldn't help but exclaimed, "It's really amazing. Looking at this battlefield, the person who made the move must have reached the perfect foundation." Chapter 768 Shocking Feat. As a professional who is good at on-site investigation, Wang Hongai naturally saw a lot of information at a glance. He walked gently, looking at the traces on the ground and said, "Take this trace for example, it is definitely caused by a cultivator in the perfect foundation building realm casting a second-level top-grade spell, and it is a gold-based spell." What he was referring to was the huge crack caused by Xie Oming casting the golden giant shears. Moreover, there was a faint golden spiritual power left on the surface of the trace, so Wang Hongai was naturally able to detect it easily. Zhou Tong, who was standing next to him, was immediately shocked when he heard this. What? A cultivator who has completed the foundation building? Could this be an evil cultivator from the Blood Spirit sect? The specific identity is still unknown for the time being. Wang Hongai shook his head and continued to check and said, "Also, look at the traces at the scene. There are at least 8 or 9 cultivators' footprints and movement traces here. There are quite a lot of people. Here, see here, there is a large amount of blood. It must be the trace of blood spraying after someone's head was chopped off. But why are there no heads and corpses? These are traces of formations, and they should be a very powerful combination formation, but it seems that the formation has been broken by someone. Here, look here, these are the traces of the use of the wood-type second-level intermediate spell Kilong King Tang technique. See the green vine fragments scattered on the ground? This is the evidence of Kilong King Tang technique. There are also a large number of explosion traces in multiple places. It doesn't look like they were caused by spells, but rather by talismans. But what kind of talisman can have such a huge explosive power? I am a little curious about this." Wang Hongai took Zhou Tong to walk around the battle scene and soon found a lot of battle information. While recording, Zhou Tong couldn't help but ask in surprise, "Deacon Wang, is this a melee between the 2 sides? And there are no bodies left. Are all the bodies destroyed? Or are there no casualties at all?" Hearing this, Wang Hongai's face was solemn, and he immediately shook his head and denied, "No, according to the various traces left at the scene, the previous battle should have been many people besieging one person, and there were at least 7 to 8 people on the besieging side. As for casualties, there must be, but those bodies should have been taken away, and there are no signs of destruction at the scene." "What? 7 or 8 people besieged one person?" Zhou Tong's eyes widened when he heard this, and he immediately questioned, "This is impossible? Could the person being besieged be the cultivator who has completed the foundation building? And Deacon Wang, you said that those bodies should have been taken away, doesn't that mean someone survived?" Wang Hongai took a long breath and said with a firm face, "Yes, and it seems that at least one person survived. It is even very likely that the surviving cultivator is the one who was besieged. The most important thing is that this person is not the cultivator who has completed the foundation building. I cannot judge his cultivation level for the time being, but that person's strength is very terrifying. Even the cultivator who has completed the foundation building has been killed by him. Wei Hong left too many traces at the scene. Wang Honggai got a lot of information after a site inspection. However, Wang Honggai did not dare to be 100% sure that Wei Hong, the besieged cultivator, was the survivor. He just made his own judgment. Zhou Tong, on the other hand, was already stunned by this information, his face full of doubts. He couldn't help but mutter, "No way? That person encountered the siege of 7 or 8 foundation building monks, not only killed a lot of enemies, but also escaped unscathed? What kind of monster is this?" Judging from his own experience, Zhou Tong asked himself that even if he faced the siege of 2 monks of the same level at the same time, he might die, not to mention 7 or 8 foundation building monks, and there was also a perfect foundation building existence. In his opinion, this was definitely a dead end in a dead end. But Wang Honggai said that the besieged person not only did not die, but even killed all the enemies. This was simply a great refresh of Zhou Tong's 3 views. He even found it hard to imagine that someone in the foundation building period could really do this. In fact, Zhou Tong didn't know that if Wei Hong hadn't had a deep foundation and had made preparations for a long time, and had the Paperman technique, self-destruct talisman and 6 absolute blue thunder formation, it would be impossible to accomplish such a feat. Wang Honggai was also full of surprise at this time. He sighed and said, "This person is extremely powerful. He is definitely not below the perfect foundation. I don't know what kind of powerful skills he has practiced, or whether he has a powerful spiritual weapon. In my opinion, this person is definitely invincible at the same level." Wang Honggai himself is a cultivator at the 8th level of foundation building, but he said such words of admiration. And the evaluation he gave was also very high. At least Zhou Tong had never heard such an evaluation from him. So Zhou Tong couldn't help asking, "Deacon Wang, can you find out the identity of this person? This person is so powerful, maybe he is in our Kangshan Immortal City. How can I find out who that person is directly?" Wang Honggai smiled bitterly, and then said, "But according to the information left at the scene, this person is a cultivator who mainly practices wood-attributed skills. It's hard to say about the rest. By the way, let's ask Deacon Mu." "That's right, this place is so close to Wanfang Market, maybe Deacon Mu knows something." Zhou Tong's eyes lit up, and he immediately called Mu Sheng over. After Mu Sheng came over, Zhou Tong first told Wang Honggai the information he had found, and then asked, "Deacon Mu, have any powerful foundation building monks come to your market in the past 2 days?" Mu Sheng was shocked and unbelievable at this time. Obviously, the impact of the information Zhou Tong told was too strong, which made Mu Sheng a little dazed and almost didn't hear the question he asked clearly. "This, Deacon Zhou, are all the things you just said true? Is there really someone who can escape unscathed from the siege of 7 or 8 foundation building monks, and even kill a lot of them?" Mu Sheng did not answer Zhou Tong's question immediately, but asked in surprise. Before Zhou Tong spoke, Wang Honggai beside him nodded and said, "It's absolutely correct. Although the man escaped unscathed, he should have been seriously injured, so he didn't have time to clean up the battlefield. A lot of traces and information were left at the scene. According to my survey, this is absolutely correct." After getting the guarantee from Wang Honggai, a first-class deacon, Mu Sheng finally accepted this fact. Zhou Tong also asked again, "Deacon Mu, have any foundation building cultivators come to your Wanfang market during this period of time?" Hearing this, Mu Sheng seemed to shudder, and subconsciously thought of Wei Hong's figure in his mind. At the same time, he blurted out the answer, "Yes, there really is, and this person just left our market today." Could it be that person? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 769, Tracking and Tracing the Source. What? Really? Who is this person? What's his identity? What's his purpose in Wanfang Market? Wang Honggai was surprised to hear that Mu Sheng actually knew something. Zhou Tong and Han Yuanpeng also looked at Mu Sheng with curiosity, obviously wanting to know who the person he was talking about was. Mu Sheng took a deep breath, and then answered solemnly, "This person's name is Wei Hong, a third-rank deacon of Dangwon Pavilion, and also an alchemist. He came to our Wanfang market a week ago, and he came for a mission. Mission? What mission? Zhou Tong next to him immediately interrupted. Wang Hongai immediately glared at him. Why are you interrupting? Let Deacon Mu finish. Yes, Deacon Mu, please speak. Zhou Tong smiled embarrassedly. Mu Sheng paused, then replied, it was a task issued by the Dangwon Pavilion. The cause was a sudden outbreak of miasma near our Wanfang market, so many cultivators have been contaminated by the miasma recently. Fellow Taoist-kin and I are not good at alchemy, and we are unable to solve the problem, so we reported it and wanted Zian Chang to send an alchemist to help us solve the problem. And fellow Taoist Wei Hong happened to take this task, so he came to our Wanfang market a week ago, and he actually developed an effective detoxification pill for us within 7 days. After completing the task, fellow Taoist-kin enthusiastically tried to keep fellow Taoist Wei Hong, wanting to treat him well, but fellow Taoist Wei Hong seemed a little hurried and did not stay. The market was opened immediately this morning. And less than a cup of tea after fellow Taoist Wei Hong left the market, fellow Taoist-kin and I sensed that a battle had taken place here, and that's what happened later. Mu Sheng recounted what he knew in detail. After he finished speaking, Wang Hongai immediately asked, besides this fellow Taoist Wei Hong, have there been any other foundation building cultivators arriving in your market recently? Also, what is the cultivation level of this fellow Taoist Wei? Because of the recent outbreak of miasma in the market, no other foundation building cultivators have arrived except fellow Taoist Wei Hong. Mu Sheng shook his head and replied, as for the cultivation level of fellow Taoist Wei, he should be in the middle stage of foundation building, and will not exceed the 5th level of foundation building. Since Wei Hong did not deliberately restrain his aura when he arrived at Wanfang market, Mu Sheng naturally knew his true level. 5th level of foundation building? No other cultivators have been here. Upon hearing this, Wang Hongai immediately fell into deep thought, and muttered, it is impossible to have such a coincidence. Besides, the fight broke out here not long after that fellow Taoist Wei left the market town. This seems even less likely to be a coincidence. Zhou Tong next to him couldn't help but raise his voice and asked, so it seems that the one who was besieged is the fellow Taoist Wei? And with his cultivation level of the middle stage of foundation building, he was able to escape unscathed from the siege of multiple foundation building cultivators? Isn't this amazing? The level of cultivation does not represent the true strength. Wang Hongai woke up from his thoughts, and said in a deep voice, the true combat power of each cultivator is different, and is affected by many aspects such as skills, spells, spiritual weapons, talismans and formations. Although fellow Taoist Wei Hong's level is not high, it is very likely that his true combat power is extremely terrifying, and he can even rival a cultivator who has completed the foundation building. This person is definitely not simple. Wang Hongai once again gave Wei Hong a very high evaluation. Mu Sheng and the other two were dumbfounded, and they also admired Wei Hong very much. Wang Hongai then said, whether it is Wei Hong or not, we are not sure yet. I will report this matter immediately after I return. As for the market, you should be careful in the near future. Yes, I understand. Mu Sheng nodded. Then we will take our leave. Wang Hongai said hello, and the three of them bowed to Mu Sheng and immediately flew towards Kangshan Immortal City. 7 days later, the Blood Spirit sect, which had gradually stopped hiding its whereabouts, suddenly issued a bounty notice to the public. The notice claimed that as long as anyone could kill Wei Hong of Dangwon Pavilion, they could receive 30,000 middle-grade spirit stones with Wei Hong's head, regardless of who they were. This bounty notice was originally only in the Blood Spirit sect, but for some reason it was suddenly spread out, and many cultivators in Kangshan Immortal City knew about it. For a time, many cultivators were shocked and hurriedly asked who Wei Hong was. What had he done to attract the Blood Spirit sect's bounty? Not long after the Blood Spirit sect issued the bounty notice, a piece of news slowly began to spread inside Kangshan Immortal City, that is, Wei Hong of Dangwon Pavilion was able to escape unscathed under the siege of 7 or 8 foundation building cultivators, and even killed many enemies. Once this news leaked out, it immediately set off an uproar in Kangshan Immortal City. In addition, the Blood Spirit sect had just issued a bounty notice not long ago, and these two pieces of news were immediately linked by many cultivators. Guangzhou Pavilion, the lobby on the first floor. At this time, in this lobby, 20 or 30 tables were filled with cultivators, and among these people, the most discussed name was about Wei Hong. Hey, fellow Taoist, he Do you think that fellow Taoist Wei Hong is really that powerful? Why do I feel a little bit unconvinced when I hear it? A slightly younger cultivator seemed to be indignant that everyone was talking about Wei Hong, so he asked a little unconvinced. The middle-aged Taoist priest next to him, who looked somewhat like an immortal, immediately sneered and replied, "Don't believe it? Do you need to believe it? Didn't you see that the Blood Spirit sect has issued a bounty notice? In all this time, have you ever seen the Blood Spirit sect issue the bounty notice for any cultivator? Fellow Taoist Chuan, don't be dissatisfied. I have heard that fellow Taoist Wei Hong killed 7 or 8 foundation building cultivators in succession before he escaped unscathed, and among them there was a master who had reached the perfect foundation. Otherwise, why would the Blood Spirit sect be so furious as to issue the bounty notice? The Blood Spirit sect naturally doesn't want to let such a master survive." "What? A master who has reached the perfect foundation?" The young cultivator didn't know about this. When he heard this, his eyes widened. How is this possible? Isn't fellow Taoist Wei Hong in the middle stage of foundation building? How could he kill a cultivator who has reached the perfect foundation? The young cultivator looked unbelievable, as if he was shocked by the news. The middle-aged Taoist priest smiled coldly and said, "Why is this impossible? This proves that fellow Taoist Wei Hong is very powerful, and naturally he is not comparable to ordinary people. I just heard that fellow Taoist Wei Hong has not returned to the Immortal City yet. I don't know if he was seriously injured or just wanted to avoid the limelight for a while." The young cultivator next to him was silent, as if he had been greatly shocked. All kinds of things and rumors about Wei Hong spread quickly in the Immortal City, so that Wei Hong suddenly became famous in just a few days. Chapter 770 Rest and Recover. Half a month later. In a hidden valley thousands of miles away from Kangshan Immortal City, Wei Hong was in a secret room dozens of feet underground. He sat cross-legged on a stone bed, his face ruddy, and he didn't seem to have any signs of injury, nor did his breath seem abnormal. After a moment, Wei Hong slowly opened his eyes. "Huh?" He let out a long sigh, and then muttered to himself, "After half a month of recuperation, I finally recovered from all my injuries." After half a month of recuperation, Wei Hong finally recovered from all the injuries to his body, and at the same time, he also got rid of the fatigue in his soul. At this time, he was full of energy and recovered to his best condition. But when he glanced at his storage bag, his face became depressed, and he couldn't help but smile bitterly and muttered, "Alice, this battle really has a lot of losses. I didn't expect that I was so careful, but I was still found by Xiao Ming and others." In the previous battle, Wei Hong used all his means. Not only did he use all his trump cards, but he also basically used up all the various talismans accumulated over the years, and returned to the pre-liberation period in one day. Of course, it was also fortunate that he had been continuously refining and accumulating a large number of self-destructing talismans in the past few years, which enabled him to successfully kill Xiao Ming and others. Otherwise, it would be a fantasy to want to retreat unscathed under the siege of 8 foundation-building monks. It's just that although his losses this time were huge, they were all consumables. As long as there were enough materials, he could slowly reserve another batch. And after this desperate battle, the benefits he gained were not small at all. The first is the improvement of cultivation. Wei Hong had been practicing in seclusion for the past few years. Although the growth of cultivation was not slow, it was relatively stable. After this life and death battle and recuperation for half a month, his cultivation suddenly increased. His understanding of the realm and experience in fighting have all improved a lot. He is not far from truly entering the 6th level of foundation building. This discovery also made Wei Hong sigh that the battle between life and death is the best way to break through the bottleneck and increase cultivation. The second is the harvest of spoils. Xiao Ming and others who came to ambush Wei Hong are all foundation building cultivators, especially Xiao Ming and Xiao Jin, the last bloodline of the Xiao family. They must carry a large number of spirit stones and various treasures. Although Wei Hong has not checked it yet, he can also feel that this harvest is definitely very rich. With these 2 major gains, it is worth his desperate battle. He touched the storage bags in his arms, thought about it, and decided, let's go back first. I've been gone for half a month. I don't know if there will be any trouble in the Immortal City. It's better to go back early. Wei Hong suppressed the idea of checking the spoils immediately and prepared to return to Kangshan Immortal City first. First, because he had tasks that had not been submitted, and second, he didn't know how the Blood Spirit sect would react after killing Xiao Ming and others. In particular, He was worried that something would happen if he stayed outside the city for too long. If he couldn't even go back to the Immortal City at that time, it would be too miserable. So Wei Hong immediately got up, packed up everything, and immediately destroyed the secret room, and then put away the formation at the entrance, and then flew towards the direction of Kangshan Immortal City on his sword. After flying away from the valley, he immediately changed his appearance and restrained his breath, and then quickly returned. After all, he had just killed people from the Blood Spirit sect, so it was always better to be careful. As Wei Hong slowly approached Kangshan Immortal City, he became more and more cautious. Fortunately, nothing unexpected happened along the way. He returned to Kangshan Fairy City smoothly, which surprised him. But Wei Hong was even more surprised when he entered the city, especially the two guards who checked his identity token. After knowing his identity, they all looked at him with admiration and respect, which made Wei Hong quite puzzled. But he was too lazy to think about it. After restoring his original appearance, he immediately returned to Dangwon Pavilion. But as soon as he entered the gate of Dangwon Pavilion, Wei Hong was stopped by someone. "Hey, is it Wei Daoyao? Haha, Wei Daoyao, you are finally back. We have been worried for a long time. We are relieved to see you return safely." A middle-aged man named Mo Xianun was about to go out. The moment he saw Wei Hong, he immediately shouted in surprise. This person was not familiar with Wei Hong. They had only met a few times and would say hello to each other when they saw each other. Apart from that, they had no friendship. But he did not expect that this person would be so enthusiastic today. Wei Hong was stunned for a while, then he smiled and responded, "Haha, it turned out to be fellow Taoist Mo. Thank you for your concern, but how did you know that Wei was out?" "Not only me, now I guess half of the cultivators in the Immortal City know it." Mo Xianun looked excited, and immediately explained, "Haha, fellow Taoist Wei, you don't know yet, you are now very famous in this Immortal City, even our pavilion master said he wanted to meet you." What? Famous? Wei Hong was stunned for a moment, and didn't understand the meaning of Mo Xianun's words at all. However, before Mo Xianun could continue to explain, two other third-grade deacons heard Mo Xianun's words and walked over quickly. After finding out that it was really Wei Hong, they also greeted him with surprise. "Haha, fellow Taoist Wei is back? Fellow Taoist is very capable, I admire you. Congratulations to fellow Taoist Wei on your safe return. Haha, fellow Taoist has brought honor to our Dangwon Pavilion." The two third-grade deacons were full of smiles and their attitudes were also very enthusiastic. Wei Hong was now even more confused and puzzled. He realized that something he didn't know must have happened during the half-month he was in seclusion to recuperate. After all, the attitude of Mo Xianun and others was so different from before, which was the best proof. But before Wei Hong could ask, more and more alchemists and deacons appeared at the gate of Dangwon Pavilion. These people came after hearing the news, wanting to make friends with Wei Hong or to see who Wei Hong was. "It's really Brother Wei who is back. Haha, Brother Taoist is amazing. We really admire him. Yes, I didn't expect that Brother Taoist not only has superb alchemy skills, but also has such powerful strength. It really makes us ashamed. Fellow Taoist Wei, I am Song Linayan, a second-rank deacon. Do you have time to come and sit with me? Fellow Taoist Wei, are you okay? I believe the pavilion master will be very happy to see that Brother Taoist has returned safely." More than a dozen alchemists surrounded Wei Hong and greeted him enthusiastically. Obviously, after learning about Wei Hong's powerful strength, the alchemists in Dangwon Pavilion began to think carefully about making friends with him, which made Wei Hong receive enthusiastic pursuit as soon as he returned to Dangwon Pavilion. Chapter 771 Become Famous. Half an hour later, Wei Hong finally returned to his residence. At this time, he couldn't help but look relieved, because dealing with the alchemists of Dangwon Pavilion was even more tiring than fighting with Xiao Ming and others. Moreover, those alchemists all came here based on Wei Hong's current resounding reputation. Everyone was saying flattering words, or enthusiastically inviting him to visit and communicate, and their attitudes were extremely enthusiastic. In this way, Wei Hong naturally couldn't show a posture of rejecting people, so he could only greet them politely, or say some greetings without much nutrition. It took him almost half an hour to finally deal with those alchemists. After returning to his residence, Wei Hong immediately let out a long sigh of relief, and then murmured, "Since it has been exposed, it seems that I can't continue to hide. Alice, I don't know whether it is good or bad. His heart was full of sighs at this time, but he didn't know what to say. It was not his intention to expose his true identity and strength, but it had already happened, and it happened during the half-month he was in seclusion to heal his wounds. He himself was not aware of it at all. In this way, even if he wanted to change the situation, it would be useless, so he could only be forced to accept it. Wei Hong finally understood why the two guards looked at him with such eyes when he entered the city. He never thought that he had become famous in Kangshan Immortal City after only disappearing for half a month. It really made him laugh and cry. Well, let's take it one step at a time. It seems that those evil cultivators of the blood spirit sect really want my life. They even issued a bounty notice to the public. They want to force me to death. When he thought of the actions of the blood spirit sect, a cold light flashed in Wei Hong's eyes. After killing Xiao Ming and others, he had already prepared for the revenge of the blood spirit sect, but he did not expect that the blood spirit sect would target him in such a way. If he appeared outside the city and was discovered, there would definitely be many cultivators who would take great risks to attack him. After all, 30,000 medium-grade spirit stones are not a small amount. Wei Hong knew this very well, and he had made up his mind not to leave the Immortal City in a short time. Even in the Immortal City, he had to be vigilant at all times. However, not long after he returned to his residence, a sound transmission talisman appeared outside the door. After sensing the fluctuations coming from outside the door, Wei Hong frowned slightly, immediately opened a hole in the formation, and then stretched out his hand, and a sound transmission talisman appeared in his hand. After opening the sound transmission talisman, a sound transmission talisman appeared in his ear. After listening, he immediately frowned and said with a puzzled look on his face, "No way? The pavilion master really wants to see me." He thought that Mo Xianun and others were just joking before, but who would have thought that this was actually true? The sound transmission note had already told Wei Hong that the pavilion master of Dangwon Pavilion, Bidang Mo, would summon him to the Link Pavilion tomorrow. The person who sent the sound transmission note was Guan Yu from the Office of Affairs, and the sound transmission note was sent just to inform him of this matter. Since the pavilion master personally summoned him, he naturally did not dare to refuse. So Wei Hong did not think about it anymore, and calmed down to start meditation and practice. The next day, before the third quarter of the morning, Wei Hong had already arrived at the door of the Link Pavilion in advance. This Link Pavilion was where Dangwon Pavilion usually entertained guests. The pavilion master of Dangwon Pavilion chose to summon Wei Hong here, which was considered to be of great importance. Just as he stood still, a subtle divine sense swept through the Link Pavilion. Then a gentle and mellow voice came from inside, "Come in." Wei Hong's heart trembled, and he naturally knew that their pavilion master Bidang Mo was inside, and it was estimated that he had already noticed his presence when he just approached, which also made Wei Hong secretly afraid. "Yes, pavilion master." Wei Hong responded respectfully, and then gently pushed open the door of the Link Pavilion. After entering the Link Pavilion, he did not dare to look at it for too long, but turned around and closed the door very consciously. Then he walked a few steps inside and saw a handsome and elegant middle-aged man sitting at the top, so he immediately bowed and greeted respectfully, "I am Wei Hong, the third-rank steward of Dangwon Pavilion, and I meet the pavilion master." The middle-aged man sitting at the top first glanced at Wei Hong, and then smiled gently, "Come, sit down and talk." At this time, the pavilion master of Dangwon Pavilion, Bidang Mo, looked like a warm elder. There was no strong aura emanating from his body, and he did not seem to be high and mighty at all, which surprised Wei Hong. "Yes, thank you, pavilion master." Wei Hong did not pretend, and sat down on the seat next to him. Just after he sat down, a maid came out from the screen behind Bidang Mo. The maid was holding a white jade tray with a cup of steaming spiritual tea on it. After serving the spiritual tea to Wei Hong, the maid immediately retreated. Wei Hong just thanked the maid quietly and did not pick up the teacup immediately. At this time, Bidang Mo looked at Wei Hong with a faint smile on his face and said, "Wei Hong, you are very good. This time, not only did you increase the face of our Dangwon Pavilion, but you also dampened the spirit and strength of the blood spirit sect. It is a credit to the entire Immortal City." Facing the praise of pavilion master Bidang Mo, Wei Hong did not dare to neglect and hurriedly stood up, then clasped his fists and said, "Thank you for the praise, pavilion master. I am ashamed of it. This ambush was beyond my expectation. What's more, the other party is more powerful, and I was helpless to fight back angrily." He did not exaggerate himself, but narrated the incident in a very normal way. Bidang Mo asked curiously, "Oh? Who are they?" "The leaders are Xiao Ming and Xiao Jin from the Xiao family of Nangxi Mountain. They led 6 foundation-building monks to besiege me. Fortunately, I am quite strong, so I managed to escape." Wei Hong answered without hesitation. "There is no need to cover up these things now. The Xiao family has been completely exterminated." Moreover, Wei Hong is not sure whether Bidang Mo knows the ins and outs of this matter, so he chose to tell the truth. As for his own strength, there is nothing to hide now. If he does not admit that he is strong, others will think that he has a big secret or possesses an extremely powerful treasure, which will easily attract the covetousness of others. Hearing Wei Hong's answer, Bidang Mo nodded calmly and praised, "Being able to kill multiple foundation-building cultivators and escape unscathed is not something that can be achieved by luck. You don't have to worry, let alone take the blood spirit sect's bounty to heart. Just stay in Dangwon Pavilion with peace of mind. I can still protect a foundation-building cultivator." Chapter 772, The Master of Dangwon Pavilion. As soon as these words came out, Wei Hong immediately showed a grateful expression. "Thank you for your love and protection, Pavilion Master." Bidang Mo waved his hand and said lightly, "No need to thank me, I am the Pavilion Master of Dangwon Pavilion, and it is my duty to protect the alchemists in the pavilion. You have made a great contribution this time, and you have completed a task for our pavilion. Tell me, what reward do you want?" Wei Hong was slightly stunned when he heard this. He didn't expect there would be such a good thing, but he couldn't think of what to ask for a while, so he could only smile bitterly and said, "Well, to be honest with you, Pavilion Master, I really don't know what reward I should ask for." Haha. Bidang Mo chuckled, as if he had anticipated Wei Hong's reaction now. He thought about it and said directly, "In this case, let this Pavilion Master decide. From now on, you will be promoted to the first-grade deacon of Dangwon Pavilion, and all welfare benefits will be improved. In addition, you will be allowed to enter the library to exchange for a spell within 30,000 merit points. Finally, you will be rewarded with 5,000 merit points and medium-grade spirit stones. How about it? Are you satisfied?" Wei Hong seemed to be hit on the head by a huge surprise at this moment. After being stunned for a moment, he immediately pretended to be ecstatic and thanked, "Satisfied, very satisfied, haha, thank you very much, Pavilion Master, I will accept it." He did not expect that after escaping from Xiao Ming and others, he would still have such a generous reward. It was really beyond his expectations. First of all, it was the status of a first-grade deacon. Generally speaking, those who could serve as first-grade deacons in Dangwon Pavilion had to be at least in the late stage of foundation building, and many of them were even cultivators who had completed foundation building. Now Wei Hong was directly promoted from a third-grade deacon to a first-grade deacon, which was a big step forward. The second was a magic spell within 30,000 merit points. This reward surprised and satisfied Wei Hong the most. You know, he had accumulated more than 10,000 merit points in more than 3 years, and he had already used up all the points when exchanging for a magic power of Lingguang Baojian. It was really rare for him to get such a precious opportunity. As for the last 5,000 merit points and 5,000 medium-grade spirit stones, they were the least worth mentioning rewards. Seeing Wei Hong so happy, Bidang Mo also smiled with satisfaction, and then said gently, "I'm satisfied. You can rest assured to stay in Dangwon Pavilion from now on. Don't worry about those evil cultivators of the blood spirit sect. Just do your own thing." Wei Hong's mind moved, and he seemed to hear the meaning of Bidang Mo's words to win him over. This seemed to explain why Bidang Mo would give him such a generous reward. Obviously, he wanted to keep him in Dangwon Pavilion. He immediately showed a flattered look on his face and said, "Yes, I will remember it. Okay, go." Bidang Mo didn't care whether Wei Hong understood what he meant, and didn't want to say anything more at this time. He threw a token to Wei Hong and waved to him. After Wei Hong took the token, he immediately bowed and saluted, and then left the Link Pavilion. After leaving the Link Pavilion, he quietly breathed a sigh of relief. Although their Pavilion Master did not give off any aura, nor did he act arrogantly, Bidang Mo had been in charge of Dangwon Pavilion for many years, and he was also a master in the late Jinden stage, which made him quite majestic. Even though he acted very gentle, Wei Hong still felt very stressed. A spell worth 30,000 merit points, this time it can be considered a blessing in disguise, and there is also the status of a first-grade deacon, then the Pavilion Master Bidang is really willing to give it. Looking at the token in his hand, Wei Hong was quite moved. The reward has been obtained, but he is not in a hurry to go to the library to exchange spells. At present, he has been promoted to first-grade deacon. This reward is not only because he completed a task, but mainly because Bidang Mo knew that Wei Hong's true strength was no less than that of the late foundation building stage, so he gave such a status promotion. After being promoted to first-grade deacon, Wei Hong can change his residence, and the treatment of a first-grade deacon is much better than that of a third-grade deacon. Naturally, he will not refuse such a benefit. Let's go to the affairs hall to choose a place to stay first, and visit fellow Taoist Guan Yu. After making up his mind, Wei Hong walked towards the affairs hall. Soon, he arrived at the door of the affairs hall. However, before he entered the door, some alchemists passing by greeted him. Wei Hong smiled and responded to them one by one, and then walked into the affairs hall. Haha, fellow Taoist Guan, how are you? Wei Hong saw that Guan Yu was busy with the affairs at hand, so he walked over and greeted him with a smile. When many apprentices and servants in the affairs hall saw Wei Hong, they all bowed respectfully. Guan Yu looked up in surprise when he heard Wei Hong's familiar voice, then laughed. Haha, fellow Taoist Wei, I heard yesterday that you were back. How come you have time to come to me today? Wei Hong had always remembered Guan Yu's reminder to him last time, and replied enthusiastically, aren't I here to reminisce with fellow Taoist Guan? And do something by the way. Haha, reminiscing is fake, doing things is real, right? Guan Yu smiled heartily and asked, well, what do you want to do? I will never refuse anything I can do. Wei Hong treated Guan Yu with more sincerity than he treated other people. He took out a token and placed it in front of Guan Yu, smiling and gestured, look, our pavilion master has just personally appointed me to be promoted to the first-rank deacon, and all treatment and benefits will be improved accordingly. You are under the jurisdiction of your affairs hall, how can I not come here? When Guan Yu saw the token on the table and heard what Wei Hong said, his eyes suddenly widened, as if he had seen something incredible. He was stunned for a long time before asking, he has become a first-rank deacon? Fellow Taoist Wei, you are too awesome. You were appointed by the pavilion master himself. I admire you. In fact, Guan Yu also knew that Wei Hong had indeed made a great contribution this time, and also brought honor to the Dangwon pavilion, so he was not surprised at all about the reward he received, but was just a little surprised. Wei Hong responded with a faint smile, there is not much difference between a first-rank deacon and a third-rank deacon, just like you, brother Guan. Just because I have become a first-rank deacon, will you think that I have become a hot commodity and want to curry favor with me? Hey, you really dare to think so? Guan Yu was speechless, and immediately said bluntly, Guan is not like other people. I can't do anything to curry favor with others. If Brother Wei breaks off friendship with me because of this, then Guan has nothing to say. Haha, don't I know you? Okay, help me with it first, change my residence, and then come to my place when you are free. Wei Hong naturally knew that Guan Yu was joking, and he and Guan Yu were also sincere friends, so he didn't be polite to him and immediately asked Guan Yu to handle it for him personally. Chapter 773 Golden Elixir Seed. In just 3 days, Wei Hong was personally received by the pavilion master of Dangwon Pavilion, and the news that the pavilion master promoted him to the first-class deacon immediately spread throughout the city. For a time, Wei Hong became even more famous. This also fully confirmed the rumor that his strength was definitely not inferior to that of the late foundation building cultivators, which made many cultivators who originally had many doubts shut their mouths. As a result, Wei Hong suddenly became quite popular. Not only in Dangwon Pavilion, but also in Kangshan Immortal City, there were many cultivators who wanted to make friends with Wei Hong, and many cultivators wanted to see what kind of person Wei Hong was. In Dangwon Pavilion, Wei Hong had received countless alchemy deacons who came to visit him in the past few days. Almost most of the alchemists came to get to know each other. Obviously, they either wanted to make friends or to make good friends, which might be useful in the future. Wei Hong was extremely helpless about such a situation, and he did not expect things to develop like this, but he could not turn away those enthusiastic alchemists, so he could only deal with them one by one. Not only that, in addition to the alchemists of Dangwon Pavilion, many Jinden families in Kangshan Xianchang also sent their clansmen to visit Wei Hong. At the same time, those Jinden families also expressed their desire to make friends with Wei Hong, and even wanted to hire him as a guest elder. After all, Although Wei Hong is only in the middle stage of foundation building now, his true strength is not weaker than any late-stage cultivator of foundation building. After he breaks through to the perfection of foundation building, won't he have many opponents below the giant stage? Even thinking about it in a big way, isn't this a giant seed? In this way, those giant families are even more eager to move, and they are constantly increasing the price, wanting to pull Wei Hong into their own family. And Wei Hong encountered something that made him laugh and cry today, because a family actually wanted a legitimate daughter of their clan leader to marry Wei Hong. He looked at the elder of the Wen family in front of him, and refused without thinking, "Dao Wen, I am really sorry, I have not yet achieved the great Dao, and I have not thought about looking for a Taoist partner. I am afraid that I will disappoint you." The man in front of him was called Wen Sheng, the younger brother of the patriarch of the Wen family, and also an elder of the Wen family. He came to visit him before a cup of tea, and after the greetings, he explained his purpose, saying that the Wen family wanted to marry him. And Wen Sheng also said that as long as Wei Hong agreed to this, the Wen family could give a large sum of dowry, and could also give Wei Hong 3 unique skills and secrets of the Wen family, and even said that these conditions could be further discussed. The Wen family is indeed a giant family, and the ancestor of the Wen family is a giant early-stage cultivator, which is much stronger than the so-called giant family like the Cao family, so Wen Sheng also hinted to Wei Hong that as long as he agreed to this, the Wen family could become his backer in the future. Faced with such a seemingly extremely generous condition, and at the same time, this matter was full of temptation, Wei Hong couldn't help but be moved for a moment, but he soon realized that this was just a means for the Wen family to win him over. Even if the conditions they promised were generous, it would definitely not be a loss for the Wen family. Moreover, Wei Hong had a big secret, so it was naturally impossible for him to agree to such a thing. It was even more impossible for him to be bound by a family, so he directly refused. Wen Sheng immediately persuaded him, "Dao Wei, you might as well think about it again. Don't rush to give me an answer. If you have other conditions and requirements, you can also discuss them." But Wei Hong still shook his head and answered firmly, "No need, Dao Wen, there is no need to mention this matter. Wei is now devoted to Taoism and doesn't want to think about other things for the time being. I hope you understand." Seeing Wei Hong's firm attitude, Wen Sheng could only smile bitterly and said, "Well, okay, if Dao Wei changes his mind, you can come to me at any time." "Haha, thank you for the kindness of the Wen family." Wei Hong smiled politely and didn't say anything else. Then Wen Sheng did not stay for long and said goodbye and left. Watching Wen Sheng's departing figure, Wei Hong sighed softly. "Alice, is this the feeling of being burdened by fame? Living like this is not what I want, and all of this is like duckweed on the water. If there is no strength to support it, it will all vanish in the end." Although he seems to be sought after by many people now, Wei Hong's mind is extremely clear. He also knows what he wants, so he does not want to get involved in these meaningless social receptions. So he immediately prepared a wooden sign with 8 big characters written on it, "Practice in seclusion, no guests," and then hung the wooden sign at the door, and finally closed the door directly. Wei Hong had long been exhausted by waves of visitors, and now he just found a reason to block those people's visits. Because he not only did not feel the slightest joy in his heart, but instead had a vague sense of crisis. Because he killed Xiao Ming and others, he has now been completely targeted by the Blood Spirit sect, and a bounty notice has been issued. This is not a good thing for him. Even if he has returned to the Immortal City, he cannot feel absolutely safe. He even has to be careful of the monks around him, fearing that he will be plotted against. In this way, Wei Hong naturally does not want to make himself more conspicuous in public. He just wants to retreat well now, and has even made plans to stay at home and not receive any guests. Only in this way can he eliminate the uneasiness in his heart. He does not want to be closely watched by the Blood Spirit sect all the time. Now the relationship between the Blood Spirit sect and the Kangshan Immortal City is so tense, and a war may break out at any time, so he only needs to lie dormant for a while, and the Blood Spirit sect may divert its attention from him. Keep a low profile. Try to keep a low profile during this period, and don't even appear in front of outsiders. It's a good opportunity for me to sort out my gains. Wei Hong has made up his mind and is going to retreat for a while. After closing the door, he first opened the formation outside completely, and then came to the practice room and sat cross-legged on the golden silk cushion. Then he took out more than 10 storage bags from his bosom and placed them in front of him one by one. These 10 storage bags all came from Xiao Ming and others, that is, the 8 foundation building monks who besieged him. Some of these foundation building monks carried more than one storage bag, especially Xiao Jin and Xiao Ming, who had 6 storage bags in total, which made Wei Hong full of expectations. Finally, I have time to check these spoils. I hope the things inside will not disappoint me. With this thought in mind, Wei Hong slowly opened the first storage bag. Chapter 774, Counting the Harvest. In the training room, Wei Hong opened the mouth of the storage bag, and then turned the bag downwards, and then a large pile of things poured out of the storage bag and piled up in front of him. Crash! Various colors of light accompanied by the breath of spiritual tools appeared in front of Wei Hong. First, a pile of medium-grade spiritual stones was the most conspicuous, mixed in a pile of miscellaneous items. He stretched out his hand and quickly sorted out the pile of spiritual stones. Not bad, not bad, more than 3,000 medium-grade spiritual stones, better than nothing. Wei Hong used his spiritual sense to scan and roughly saw the number of this pile of spiritual stones, so he took out a storage bag specially used to store spiritual stones and collected the pile of medium-grade spiritual stones. In addition to the spiritual stones, he found that only 4 items in this pile of things were the most valuable. Among them were 2 spiritual tools, one of the second-level medium and one of the second-level low-grade, and a jade box. The box contained a jade slip that recorded a low-grade Zhuan level skill, and the last item was 5 bottles of his Hangayang pills. Apart from that, the rest were all sundries and worthless things. According to the previous method, Wei Hong took out another storage bag and put all the worthless sundries into it, ready to deal with them together. As for the spiritual tools and jade slips, they were put into his own storage bag. Then, he picked up another storage bag. The things in this storage bag were not as many as the previous one, but a few of them made Wei Hong's eyes light up. Hey, second-level top-grade spiritual tools? Or 2, wow, you are worth a lot of money. Wei Hong looked at the 2 spiritual tools and couldn't help but smile with satisfaction. In addition to the 2 second-level top-grade spiritual tools, there were more than 5,000 middle-grade spiritual stones and 5 bottles of second-level top-grade golden marrow pills. The value of these things is much higher than the things in the previous storage bag. Seeing that the harvest was getting richer and richer, Wei Hong was getting more and more happy. He kept checking those storage bags one by one. Except for the 6 storage bags belonging to Xiao Jin and Xiao Ming, he carefully checked and sorted out all the others and found that he had gained a lot. Among them, there were almost 20,000 medium-grade spiritual stones alone, which was definitely a lot of money for an ordinary foundation building cultivator. In addition, there were almost 20 medium and low-grade spiritual tools of the second grade, but Wei Hong no longer looked down on these spiritual tools. Next, he planned to sell all these medium and low-grade spiritual tools in exchange for spiritual stones to avoid taking up too much space. As for the second-grade high-grade spiritual tools, he also gained 5. Naturally, he would not sell these second-grade high-grade spiritual tools, but planned to keep them for his own use or for emergency use. In addition, there were a lot of various elixirs, and most of them were elixirs for improving cultivation. Even if he didn't use them, he could keep them or exchange them. In short, it was another amount of spiritual stones. After sorting out and putting away all the spoils, Wei Hong turned his attention to the 6 storage bags in front of him. These 6 storage bags were all looted from Xiao Ming and Xiao Jin, not only because they had the highest cultivation, but also because they were the last survivors of the Xiao family. Therefore, Wei Hong remembered this very clearly and attached the most importance to these 6 storage bags. The last 2 members of the Xiao family should have a lot of good things on them, right? With great expectations, Wei Hong slowly picked up one of the storage bags. Hula! A large number of items were poured out of the storage bags and piled up in front of him. There were many dazzling spiritual lights flashing among them, and there were also a lot of spiritual stones. However, Wei Hong did not stop immediately, but poured out all the contents of the other storage bags. For a while, a small mountain of various items piled up in front of him. It was not until then that he began to slowly clean up and organize. They are all middle-grade spirit stones, put them aside for now. Hey, second-grade high-grade spirit tools, good stuff. Tisk, is it the Xiao family's special secret technique or technique? Put it aside for now, and we'll look at it later. What is this? Why is there only half of it? Is the Xiao Ming's second-grade top-grade flying sword? Tisk, 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 good stuff. Wei Hong sorted out the 6 storage bags for more than an hour, and finally managed to sort out all the things in them. Among them, Xiao Ming and Xiao Jin carried more than 50,000 middle-grade spirit stones, and even more than 20 high-grade spirit stones, which really gave Wei Hong a huge surprise. Together with the 20,000 middle-grade spirit stones before, this meant that he didn't need to worry about the shortage of spirit stones in the short term, and this large amount of spirit stones was even enough to support his cultivation to the late stage of foundation building. Faced with such a harvest, how could Wei Hong not be extremely happy? In addition to the spirit stones, there were more than 20 most valuable items, one or two of which looked a little mysterious, but he couldn't tell their origins. The rest were all sundries and worthless things. Tisk, did Xiao Ming and the others only take part of the Xiao family's assets? Looking at the more than 20 items in front of him, Wei Hong had a satisfied smile on his face. He guessed that this might be because although Xiao Ming and the others fled the Xiao family in a hurry, they also took part of the family's assets, so they had so many good things on them. And now, all these good things belonged to him. He first picked up a golden flying sword, which was the one Xiao Ming used to deal with Wei Hong before, and it was a second-level top-grade flying sword. This flying sword alone was worth at least 4,000 medium-grade spirit stones, and it was not necessarily available. Wei Hong carefully examined it and played with it for a while, then he sighed. As expected of the Xiao family, such a second-grade golden flying sword, ordinary foundation-building cultivators should have never seen it. Although he did not have a golden spiritual root and did not practice golden skills, this flying sword was not very suitable for him, but he could choose to exchange it for something more suitable for himself. After putting away the golden flying sword, he looked at the other spiritual tools placed together. These 5 or 6 items were all second-grade top-grade spiritual tools, including flying swords, flying knives, a small flag and a round bowl, all of which were very good quality. If you count them this way, he has harvested at least 10 second-grade top-grade spiritual tools from the 8 foundation-building cultivators who besieged him. If other foundation-building cultivators knew about this, they would probably be jealous to the point of madness. This is only the second-grade top-grade spiritual tools, and the second-grade middle and lower-grade spiritual tools add up to as many as 20 to 30, which Wei Hong could not use, and he needed to deal with them all later. After putting away all the spiritual tools, there were only 4 things left in front of him. A blood-red jade slip, a golden jade bottle, a copper piece with only half of it left, and a jade box carved from ice jade. Chapter 775 Kingatung Fueling Pill. Looking at the 4 items in front of him, Wei Hong's face was a little serious. He first picked up the blood-red jade slip, put it between his eyebrows and began to examine it. However, as time went by, Wei Hong's face gradually became more solemn, and his brows were furrowed, as if he had seen something that shocked him. After a full cup of tea, he put down the jade slip and slowly opened his eyes, then frowned and said to himself, "Burning blood exploding spirit art?" It turned out to be such a domineering self-mutilation art, and it is also a secret art circulated within the blood spirit sect. It is indeed an evil sect. The reason why Wei Hong had this reaction was because the blood-red jade slip recorded a secret art called Burning Blood Exploding Spirit Art. This secret art is different from others. It is a secret art that can enable practitioners to stimulate their own potential and requires burning blood essence to perform. Once this secret art is performed, the practitioner will greatly improve his own combat effectiveness. In other words, this is a secret art that can turn the tide of the battle at a critical moment and even help oneself escape. However, although the effect of such a secret technique is extremely powerful, and can even be called overbearing, its sequelae are also very serious. Once this secret technique is performed, at least 1/3 of the caster's blood and essence will be burned, which means that it can only be performed twice in a row at most. If you want to perform it for the 3rd time, the caster will die of blood and essence exhaustion without anyone else's help. If you only perform the secret technique once, when the effect of the secret technique ends, the loss of blood and essence alone is enough to cause the caster to suffer a lot of damage, and it is impossible to recover without a few months of rest. Such an overbearing and weird secret technique is indeed in line with the style of the evil sects such as the Blood Spirit sect. Wei Hong's first reaction to seeing this secret technique was dislike. After all, this is a secret technique circulated within the Blood Spirit sect, and the Blood Spirit sect is an evil sect, which naturally made him feel a little uncomfortable. But after reading the entire secret technique, He became very interested in the powerful effect of this secret technique. Maybe I can practice it, but I can't say anything else, but I have vitality points, so the consumption of blood in essence is not a problem for me at all. Wei Hong's eyes lit up, and he immediately realized that this secret technique seemed to be very suitable for him. Because he had vitality points to recover from injuries and blood in essence, others could not perform it multiple times in a row, but it was not a problem for him at all. In this way, as long as he practiced successfully, this secret technique would immediately become another trump card in his hand. But Wei Hong thought again at this time, since this secret technique was passed down by the Blood Spirit sect, once it is performed in the future, it must not be discovered by outsiders. In other words, as long as he performed this blood-burning and exploding spirit technique, he must cut the grass and kill all the enemies at the scene, so as to ensure that he would not be exposed. After figuring this out, he immediately put away the blood-red jade slip. After putting away the jade slip, Wei Hong picked up the golden jade bottle. After picking up the jade bottle, he first examined it carefully, and then murmured, "Golden jade bottle? It's so exquisite, the things in this jade bottle should not be simple, right?" Wei Hong gently shook the jade bottle, and a slight collision sound came from it. He didn't want to guess any more, but directly opened the stopper, tilted the bottle mouth slightly towards the palm of his hand, and immediately poured out a green pill the size of a longan. There was a circle of light gold lines on the surface of the pill. After seeing this pill, his expression immediately condensed, as if he felt that this pill was very similar to a certain pill in his impression, so he sniffed it gently again, and immediately smelled a faint fragrance. Kingin Fueling Pill. After thinking for a moment in his mind, Wei Hong shouted with surprise on his face. After confirming it again and again, he found that this pill was indeed Kingin Fueling Pill. For a moment, Wei Hong couldn't help but burst into laughter. Haha, wonderful, it's actually the Kingin Fueling Pill, this is really a no-waste effort. Faced with this sudden surprise, he himself felt a little unbelievable. This is because this Kingin Fueling Pill is the same as the Beishun Shuhun pill he got before, both of which are realm-breaking pills. Unlike the Beishun Shuhun pill, this Kingin Fueling Pill can help him break through the bottleneck of the late stage of foundation building. In other words, as long as Wei Hong cultivates to the peak of the 6th level of foundation building, when he swallows this pill, he will have a great chance of breaking through to the late stage of foundation building. In this case, how can he not be extremely surprised? Haha, not bad, worthy of being a member of the CAO family. This family has a deep foundation. It seems that my breakthrough to the late stage of foundation building is just around the corner. Wei Hong laughed again. With this Kingin Fueling Pill, there is no obstacle for him to break through to the late stage of foundation building. Enjoy. He immediately put the pill back into the jade bottle, and then put it away solemnly, not daring to be careless. After all, this pill was related to whether he could break through to the late stage of foundation building. After putting away the jade bottle, Wei Hong picked up the copper piece that was only half broken. This copper piece was the only thing among so many things that he couldn't see the origin of, and didn't know what it was used for. It looks like a copper piece, but it seems to be gold but not gold, copper but not copper, neither like a material, nor like a spiritual weapon. What on earth is this? Looking at the copper piece that was only half broken in his hand, Wei Hong looked at it for a long time without any clue. The front of the copper piece was engraved with one arm pointing downwards on the left and right, but it didn't look like a human arm, but rather like a monster's, and both arms were pinching different spells, and Wei Hong couldn't understand what these spells meant. Moreover, only half of the two arms were exposed, and the upper part was just cut off from the broken edge of the copper piece. In addition to the two arms, there was also a half body sitting cross-legged. The upper body was also cut off along with the copper plate, so the whole picture could not be seen. As for the back of the copper plate, it was engraved with dense and tiny characters, but Wei Hong could not understand what these characters were, and he had never even heard of them. What on earth is this? This kind of characters is definitely not the characters used by humans. Could it be demon characters? This does not look like Sanskrit. Wei Hong guessed that this might be a kind of characters used by the demons, because he knew that the demons were also a very large race in the world of immortal cultivation. Those below the nascent soul stage were called demon beasts, but those who reached the nascent soul stage and could transform into human form were the real demons. They were also like humans, able to speak human language and had their own characters. But he was not completely sure yet, and this was just his guess. Forget it, no matter what it is, it seems that we can't figure it out in a short time, so let's put it away first. Wei Hong felt vaguely in his heart that this piece of copper seemed quite extraordinary, and there was a great secret on it, but now he couldn't figure out the origin of the copper piece, so he could only put it away first and find a way to figure it out later. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.